Good afternoon. How are we? I told him to keep his mouth shut, and then he started talking exactly as we went live. How are you? It's been a long time. We are back with some live interviews. Andy Ward's presents, and today I brought out the big guns. Who else than to help me get back into 2024, interviewing some of the world's biggest and best names? None other than Mr. Mark Doyle, the gentleman behind Kandi. How are you, sir? Welcome onto the stream. Thank you for being here. You all right?
Thank you very much for having me, Mr. Ward. It's a pleasure. I will just preface this whole conversation by saying it's going to be slightly dictated by two other people in the house. We've got a 6-month-old puppy on one side of me and a 2-year-old, still a puppy, on the other side of me. At some point, the wife's going to come in. The dogs are going to go mental and going to be barking and jumping around and whatever. For the moment, they're asleep. So let's just make the most of it while we can. And we'll deal with the chaos as it comes.
Okay. Well, as you're talking there, for some reason, you've completely frozen on my screen. So I've got no idea.
You've frozen on my screen too.
Oh, I don't know if that's my computer. I don't know whether that's your Zoom. I think my Zoom has actually just crashed. It has. Reconnecting. Oh, this is fantastic, isn't it? Well, it's all good. This is the power of live television. I'm back.
You're back.
I think we're working.
You're back now with sound.
Yes, we're all good.
It's unstable network. You're just unstable.
There you go. Trying to do too many things. Okay.
What other channels do you have open? What have you been watching on YouTube we should know about?
Shh. Let's not talk about that. Okay, so what I have learnt down the years is to get straight into these conversations so people know exactly what they're going to get. We got a very brief intro from yourself about the dogs. Even though you were frozen, I heard everything that you said. So whether people are watching this live or we get many people come back and checking out the recording, again, I want to thank you for your time. The whole purpose of this conversation is for us to get to know a little bit more about yourself, the gentleman behind the brand, because you are much more than the two incredible brands that you have created and responsible for. So we want to find out about how you got to that point. We want to find out about the rise of Kandi and Fierce Angel. And then we want to find out some nitty gritty as well, because knowing yourself, knowing the kind of character that you are, I'm sure you'll give us a warts and all documentation. Is that fair to say?
You can have my all, Andy. You're the first person to have my all.
Beautiful. Well, I'm sure I'm not the first person you've said that to ever, but, let's go. Now, I'm just checking to make sure there are a lot of no issues. Mr. Reed says the sound keeps stuttering. That may have been something to do with the way that my computer was working. It may be okay now. So, Steve, do let me know if it's still giving you issues. So, Mark Doyle, tell us about yourself. You can be specific. You can be roundabout. The year you were born, or the era you were born, the area you were born, and did they have colour televisions for you at the time?
Yeah. Remember back in the day when we'd all gather around the fire and now I was born in 1969 and landed on the moon. Mum said that always had an effect on me. 1969, I always had an interest in music. Mum and Dad kept these like baby book things of highlights of your childhood and all the rest of it. And there's an actual entry in baby book, and it's like Mark is 3 years old and he's demanding his own record player. Wow. He keeps going in our box of 7-inch records, because they used to have those old vinyl boxes, 7-inch things. Keeps going in there, and I remember one of the first record players they bought was sort of like a red carry case thing. Mm-hmm. You could play 7 inches on it, and they had one of those brilliant old sort of 70s record players where you could stack the records up and it would drop them down and play them one after the other, which was at the time. And my dad took me into Woolworths and bought me my first 7-inch, which was the theme from Black Beauty. Strangely enough, I used to sit and watch that on a Sunday. So I've kind of, that thing with music has always been there, and parents had quite varied taste. And they were very much into soul and Motown carpenters, but great songs, great singers, great songs. And I think that always stayed with me. So if you look at anything I've done since, you look at, it's always vocal, there's always got to be some emotion or some soul in it.
Well, let me ask you then, before we skip forward. Tell me a little bit more about your upbringing. So the area you're actually from, any siblings? Tell us a little bit about your mum and dad's background. So paint us a picture of who you are.
Proper working class family. Brought up in a council flat, 9th floor, on the Golf Links estate in Southall, West London. I think it was deemed as one of the roughest estates in West London.
And you always had that as a badge of honour.
Yeah, I think about I was 12 or whatever, they didn't really want me going downstairs and playing with the other children. I used to play on the landing. Mum and Dad both worked. Dad was a printer, proper manual labour. Mum was a school assistant. Very much, you come home from school and we'd be looked after by one of the neighbours until they got back. So your proper sort of, working class upbringing, just taught if you wanted money, if you wanted to do anything, you had to work for it. I remember having price lists for doing the washing up and different things like that for additional. There was always a way to earn a bit of money, additional sort of, you want a Star Wars figure or something like that.
I love it.
Or I used to get comics every week and I'd set up a little comic shop and then sell comics to my friends. And so always a bit of an entrepreneur. And we never had loads of, it wasn't like we never went without it. Wasn't like that. Parents absolutely worked their backsides off, but yeah, your standard sort of normal school. I was the weird geeky kid, was never into sports, had asthma and hay fever as a child, so I used to get off of doing games on the field and sit and read books when I was young. Have a brother 3 years older than me and could not be more opposite than each other. Lee is actually a director at Brentford Football Club.
Okay.
And he is in charge of all of everything they do in the community with the children and stuff like that. So he organises all kids football training. He was very instrumental in helping them get their new ground because of all of the sort of social work they do with the children in the Brentford area. And he is sport, like it would be quite funny even when we got to sort of 17, 18, I would be coming in from a nightclub at 6 a.m. and he would be getting up to go play football on Sunday morning and we'd pass each other upstairs. So yeah, we lived on the 9th floor of the tower block till I was about 7 or 8. Then the council moved us because my asthma was quite bad and they moved us into a masonette, which was in a nicer, just sort of same area, but a bit nicer up near Greenford.
It's so funny you say that because this morning I've been recapping on a story I was telling of my own upbringing, completely parallel at the moment up to this point. And I'd said we lived in a masonette, and I said, "Is a masonette? Do people know what a masonette is?" I thought it was a Birmingham word. It's like a national word, right?
It's basically a flat. It's a flat, but it's in a block of 8 other flats.
Yeah.
But it's a cube built for the purpose, sort of thing. And they got the opportunity to buy that when the council did their whole right to buy thing. So they got really lucky in that they were able to purchase a house vastly cheaper than you could and got themselves on the housing ladder. And they purchased that house, which then enabled them to sell it later after we'd moved out. They sold that and then moved to Sunbury-on-Thames. They went posh.
Oh,
like that.
Very
Get rid of the
nice.
kids and we're going to live near the Thames. And yeah, it was a really, really normal childhood. I was always kind of like, very, very schooly, studying and whatever. High expectations of Mark, going to go to university and do whatever. And then probably about 15, 16, I kind of got a life. I kind of went beyond just being, the geeky kid at school.
Oh, here's one of the dogs waking up. While the dog stirs,
They were being all well behaved for a minute. And then...
let me just say, because I do. This is the first time I'm streaming, Mark, since October, I think. So it's it's great to have you as the first guest, and I'll try and make this as interactive as I can. Tracy's commenting on YouTube, sending some hearts. So thank you, Tracy. And also Steve and Simon and Chris, all with us on Facebook. So thank you to everybody. More people than catch the recordings and after. And it's always difficult to get the word out for people to check us out live. So thank you to everyone coming back. We'll get on to talking about this a little later. But Chris was saying that he remembers Head Kandi at the Brunel Rooms around about 2004. So yeah,
had a revolving dance floor.
Exactly, Swindon. I loved it. Also, a gentleman you may know by the name of Mike Van Loon. I'm sure we'll talk about Mike a little later on. So stick around, Mike, for your moment in the spotlight. Okay, so 15 years of age, 1984, 1985. Tell us about.
Full swap. Good at English. Terrible at maths, but good. But it was very much what I was interested in, and I was good at, and anything else I could kind of do, and it bored me. They had to move me up a year at one point because I was causing trouble in class because I was so bored. Apparently, it was like he's not being tested enough.
Were you a briefcase wanker?
Bit of, the kid at school that used to get beaten up quite a lot, he used to beat me up. So
I love it.
It was geeky. I was into mechanics. I was into records. I was listening to Radio London. I was listening to Tony Blackburn and Robbie Vincent. When I was about 12, listening to great soul records, and going down and sort of going into Tower Records and going into the import section and buying things like the Dramatics and all these sort of soul bands and stuff.
I don't want to take you off your timeline, but I would like to ask: have you? Do you still have your parents, both of them?
My dad passed away about 4 years ago.
Okay.
Mum is quite interesting as well. And it was a bit of a sad story, but Dad basically worked all of his life. He was never ill, and then had an aneurysm and basically collapsed at home. They got him back in the hospital, and while he was recovering in the hospital and repaired it, he had a stroke, which then meant he went into a home. And while he was, and that was really sad because they'd obviously worked all their life, and I felt very, very unfair of the world. But you work all your life, and then you're just at the point where you can enjoy it. At 70. And then all this goes wrong. And Mum literally he got put in a care home because he had to have lots of care and stuff. And Mum visited him basically every day for about 2 years, and that was their life. Best supposed to be the best years of your life. Retired, but that was everything they'd worked for. And I suppose my brother and I have turned out extremely well rounded, and have done what we've done. So that's a credit to them. But for them themselves, they've moved to this lovely house in Sunbury-on-Thames, and then she's visiting him in a sort of what is like a 1-bedroom travel lodge with nurses.
Yeah, so I hear that. There's definitely I wouldn't say a lesson, but it makes you reflect, doesn't it? The reason I asked you the question was, and thank you for feeling you could share that with us. I wanted to ask, did you ever have the opportunity to ask your dad where his love for soul music came from? So when you're listening to Radio London and the likes.
They had really eclectic tastes, and they used to go out for I remember Mum was saying, Mum and Dad, they'd go out for a frothy coffee in Soho and go dancing, and it was very much Motown, the Beatles, but very eclectic taste. Everything from we had in the record box was everything from ELO to Rod Stewart to Motown greats to the Stylistics to it was like right across the board.
Very much parallel. We have very much parallel early upbringings with the same with the music. If anyone's just joining us, that isn't Mark's stomach. That's one of his dogs. Okay, I just thought I'd let you know.
I'm just going to do now. The lick mat's coming out.
Go on then. Take your time.
I'll tell you what a lick mat was. If anyone's not got, that's the dog pulling the lead. Andy, but
Go and do what you're doing while you do
I'm
that.
going to go and do this. Andy will fill for a second.
I will, Phil. I'll say hello to Emily watching us on YouTube. I'll also say a shout out to Mr. Wilcox, to Chris Gerald, and to John Rogers as well, offshore. Shouldn't you be working? Chris Warren, I've already said hello to, and Soy Gracia. Good afternoon, everybody. Anyone else joining? I'm testing out some new equipment. I am dual streaming at the moment, currently on Facebook on this vertical feed, and then also I am broadcasting to YouTube, which will be archived in full HD, which is the the widescreen mode. So we're getting the best of both worlds here. Mark is now back, and
didn't know you were tuning into an animal program, did you?
there you go.
It's actually sort of nature. Now the dog's had 2 seconds on the lick mat.
And you say he's going to go crazy when the wife comes back any second anyway.
The wife will come back home shortly, and they'll be screaming and barking and all sorts. But for anyone who doesn't know, doesn't have dogs, the way to keep the dog occupied, these rubber things you stick on the floor and you put peanut butter in them, and they just sit there and lick them for hours. And if you freeze them, they lick them for even more. So that's why it's so.
There you go.
Now, anyway, where were we?
Well, I am being asked questions here, which are slightly out of the timeline. I will come back to that, Chris, so bear with me. I'm going to make a note of it because I don't want to jump too far ahead. Also, someone, Isis Victoria Rose, calling her, who says Phoenix Rose.
Phoenix Rose, our lead dancer.
Exactly.
On stage at all our events.
So she's sending love on Facebook. So hi, thank you for commenting. And anyone else, feel free to comment. I am seeing all of them. And of course, I don't want to interrupt Mark. When there is a chance, I will draw reference to people. So
I'm sure there'll be a point where the dogs go mental again now and you'll have a chance to answer anything or tell you anything.
Good.
But yeah, so the record thing, I always bought records, I collected records, listen to, I would record Top of the Pops from the TV onto a tape deck and then listen to it in the bath and have cassettes of Top of the Pops and edit my own things and, just those days of, sort of double cassette decks, your own stereo and things.
It's impossible to not get nostalgic, romanticize about those times, right?
It was a far simpler time. I mean, recording Battlestar Galactica onto a cassette so you can listen to the episode again while you were in the bath.
Oh, I never went that far. You were the proper nerd.
Oh, God, yeah. And then putting little clips, TV shows, working out how to wire 2 cassette players together. So you wired the audio leads together and played them separately, but then mixed them onto the top of another record.
Wow.
Yeah. So,
full on. Kandi, I've interviewed so many people down the years, all from the same between 68 to 72 kind of vid, and we're all talking about, yes, we did this, we all had an electronics kit from Tandy and all those kind of things. So parallel universe, or it's a similar universe.
Yeah. Thomas Salter chemical sets as well. I mean, they used to give you in the day, like back in the day, health and safety was just another thing entirely. I remember my Thomas Salter chemistry set, I mixed up a load of stuff out of it, didn't follow any instructions, and literally blew up the flask in the kitchen and turned the ceiling green. And this was like, yeah, you can do what you want with this, this, and this. But yeah, so I ended up as the kid in school with the most records. And, people knew this. And as people got to their birthday party, like their 15th, 16th birthday party, they would be having a birthday party somewhere. We used to have a place called the Spaceship in Greenford. And all 16-year-olds seemed to have their birthdays there. And I started to get asked if I would DJ at the party. And a friend of ours, a girl called Tina Murphy, her dad was a mobile DJ. And he had all the gear. So they would hire him to do all these parties. And he would then ask me if I would DJ instead. All of the newer records and stuff. And I would bring my records along. And that's how I started DJing on a proper rainbow, just fixed batter thing with the mixer, and then I kind of bought my own little setup, but it wasn't even proper DJ. Phonic MR260, classic mixer with a 12-band graphic equalizer, and I had a couple of just static decks, just dual static decks, and I would mix and I would take all this stuff down and plug them into speakers. And And from that, I started, when we were doing like the school Christmas pies in sixth form, we had our own set of huts separate to the school itself. So they would be the sixth form huts, and you'd be all cool. And I would do the discos in the sixth form huts.
Wow.
And that kind of got me to 18 years old, where suddenly I discovered music and DJ, and I was a bit popular because I was playing records. I was no longer the kid that, you know, sort of didn't play football and didn't do this and didn't do that, but I was a little bit interesting. And I had some friends, and that's when school just went out the window, you know, from like, well, university, I'm going to get a job. So I want to go out and do things. And we were basically, my brother was very instrumental in this. Although I say we're complete opposite, he was very much the cool-headed, clever person. And we were walking past a bar in Ealing, and they were very, very quiet. They'd just reopened, and they were called Haven Stables. And he went, it's really empty. It was Thursday. Like, why don't we just go and ask if you play records? I'll do the door, and we'll do a night. No clue what we're doing. I'm 18 years old. Can't mix for toffee. Still can't. And we went in and we spoke to the owners. And yeah, they'll give you Thursday nights. So we started doing Thursday nights. And the weird thing was, it was Top of the Pops was shot up the road, so people from Top of the Pops were coming, and then people heard about it, and everyone else started coming, and it was a really commercial night. You know, we were playing the Four Tops logo in Acapulco, the Pasadenas, stuff like that, and it just took off, and we, you know, suddenly we were £5 to get in, and 350 people were coming in, and me and my brother are walking out on a weekly basis with over 700 quid in our pocket.
Wow.
We're like, all right then. Do a bit of this.
How did you very briefly? How did your folks feel about this? Turning your nose up at university? Were they disappointed? Not disappointed. That's a harsh word. But
I still had a job from 15 working in WH Smith. Even when you weren't supposed to be working, they put me in the stock room, and I was working. So from 15, I had a Saturday job and weekends, the rest of it. And I literally left school and went straight to work and went to work in retail. Because I've been doing toy shop. I worked in a toy shop for God knows how many years, and the problem was, what I wanted to do is I wanted to be a DJ. So I had jobs that required little or no actual sort of, you know, working at, you know, just be there on the shop floor in a toy shop. You know, that's it. It's about as much.
No targets, you mean?
You know, and just, you know, sell toys to kids and stuff. That was it, and which suited me fine as well. And then I ended up working in a call centre, taking calls. In the days before the internet, children, there used to be things on TV where they'd give you phone numbers to call if you wanted to buy a copy of Sentimental Journey or whatever. And it would always be at 3 a.m. for old people that couldn't sleep. And, you know, you'd be there buying stuff from the 50s or whatever. But there used to be call centres, and they used to be in the UK, and they'd be manned 24 hours a day, speak to a human being, and you'd represent lots of clients, and you'd send them brochures, you'd send them or sell them records or printing systems or just all that crap that used to happen. But it was brilliant because you could literally take a shift, and as long as you worked 30 hours a week, you could work pretty much when you wanted. So I could go out all weekend and I could DJ some nights and go to clubs, do whatever, and then go to work Tuesday to Thursday and do a couple of 24-hour shifts. I'm sure there'd be laws against it now. But
selling everything basically at the back of the Reader's Digest.
So, yeah, that was basically it. Or stuff that was on. It was stuff that was on ITV at 3 a.m. You know, or do you want a brochure for a Range Rover?
So let me take you back to the discos then. You were saying it was very commercially led, as most clubs were in 87, 86, 87, 88. Were you on the microphone then or not?
Yes. I also had a residency at the Feathers, which was a pub round the corner. And that was very, very microphone led. That was basically it. I was also one of the first DJs to work in Yates's Wine Lodge, which opened in Ealing Broadway. And that was, I used to love all that. I mean, I was brought up on wedding discos, did a lot of wedding discos, did a lot of birthdays, did commercial pubs, and it was all about it was never about being the coolest person. It was about entertaining. And there was very much that if I hadn't ended up being a DJ, I probably would have been a red coat at Butlers or something. You know, God help me, I would probably be Stephen Mulhern or something by now. My wife hates Stephen. Nothing. And yeah, and, you know, it was. I just enjoyed. I enjoyed being the centre of attention. Let's be completely honest about it. You know, and the doorman. I remember the door, and it was a time of proper doorman as well. You know, like let's talk about the back of the country. The doorman used to come over and they'd be like the local West London firm, and they'd be like, "Right, can you calm everyone?" They're all getting a little bit excited now, and you'd be like, "Oh hell, I'm gonna put monkeys on. I'm a believer," or whatever. You know, we were playing Sweet Caroline before Sweet Caroline was called again. And
Except it wasn't cool back then. Come on now.
But everyone was singing, you know, and it's about that, getting that reaction, getting that feedback from people. And
go for it. Go for it. Good afternoon, Angel. How are you? Hi, Joey. I'm sure we'll be chatting about yourself a little bit later on as well. And everybody else, we're about 26 minutes into this conversation. If you're passing through live on Thursday afternoon, and we're going to be talking about how Head Kandi came about. We're going to talk about some turbulent times. Some people will be aware of the history, others not so much, and we'll shed light on that. We'll also find out about the iconic imagery behind the brand, of course. And then we'll talk about life after Head Kandi, and then how we are back here billing Mark as Mr. Head Kandi once again in 2024. Go on then, sir.
God. Yes, that was a postman. He's got a massive dog in his face. So we won't be getting.
That's not a euphemism.
For the foreseeable future.
Yeah, we're talking about you being the centre of attention. Pop music, classical discos and whatnot, and then this will be the birth of the house movement. So how does that tie into everything?
Well, so if you look at the timeline, I'm basically in Haven Stables and the Feathers in Ealing, playing commercial music, 86, 87, and it's all going really well. And obviously, what also is happening then is that I'm suddenly getting £700 a week on top of my wages. And I can then just go to record shops and buy whatever I want and just teach myself what I like and what I don't like. And I used to, on a Saturday, I would go to sort of basically right the way around, sort of Lewiston at Bluebird Records. There'd be Craig at Tracks, and Bluebird did very much soulful sort of, you know, American house music, really cool stuff. Tracks did European stuff, and they did all of sort of the, very much serviced the gay market and had a lot of Italian piano house and really weird bootlegs and things. They were the first shop to have Carly Simon's bootleg of Why, which I paid £35 for at the time. And this is where, you know, sort of like you've got house music coming in, City Sounds, Dave at City Sounds. You'd go into the record shop, you'd get a delivery in, and it would very much be, right, we've got this. And he would go and put it on the platter, he'd play it, and then everyone put their hand up if they wanted a copy and off it to go around there. And I was buying so much stuff that probably I never even played, because I was kind of teaching myself about house and what I like. By purely just by overspending on stuff, and then playing it in clubs and playing it in our club that we had, and learning what did and didn't work. You know, I just played the dance floor with that one. That was brilliant. And I was always very, very gimmicky as well. So what we did was about 88, we announced that we were rebranding our night, which at the time was called Freestyle, Even Stables. We rebranded it, and we got a guy to do a flyer. And the flyer, like, all computers and stuff, he did like sort of 3 layers of stuff and had it all printed. And we started as a club night, and the original flyer was like a little sort of house with music coming out of it, music, and it was hip house, electro house, and it was me DJing, and it was just brilliant. And you know, Brandon Block, so Brandon and Dean Thatcher had the Sundays. They did a thing called Roast or something. It was like a Sunday afternoon where people would go. And I was still very, to the club scene. I must actually preface this by saying the reason that we changed it and the reason that I suddenly got into house music or sort of started shopping for house records was that my brother, I'd gone on holiday somewhere on my own. I used to like going away on my own. I'd go to Spain on my own on 80s, 30s. And he met me at the airport and he said, "We're going out." And I was like, "What?" It was like Friday night. I was listening to Kiss FM and we won tickets to a club night. So I thought we'd go along and have a look and see what it's like. And it was Nicky Holloway's Sing at Astoria. We went to this club and people talk about you having this sort of spiritual moment or whatever. But we walked into this club and Pete Tong was playing at Nicky Holloway's Sing in Astoria Theatre, and everyone who walked into this place, it is steamy, it is raw, and Pete Tong plays the a cappella of Back to Life by Soul to Soul. And that was just before they even released Keep On Moving. So we obviously had a few, and I think, and sort of knew about dramatic jazz and stuff like that, but it was, and you walked in and went, I want to do this. I want to do this. And that was when I started shopping properly for house records. No drugs involved at this point. None of that at all. For a while, when we rebranded the night and I started going to other house nights, I was completely confused about the state some people were in. I led a very, very sheltered life. I didn't smoke, didn't drink that much, and drugs were, it was like, we've got some early proper VHS footage from Haven Stable, getting it all digitized at some point. But we're doing these nights and Brandon Block's on the dance floor and asking what record I'm playing. And I'm like, Jamiroquai, JK from Jamiroquai, became a very sort of acquaintance, let's say. He used to turn up and I think he was about 16, 17 at the time. And he would turn up and park his bike or chain his bike up outside Haven Stables and come in, and we'd regularly, like every so often, we'd throw him out because he was underage, and he'd sit on Haven Green listening to music and stuff. We had no clue who this guy was at the time or what it was going to be. It was only later on that he ascended fame. He turned up at our very first Head Candy. That's another story for the future. But he was a West London boy. And there were so many great things that came out of West London. I mean, Rocky and Diesel used to have a night. You'd have sort of things that they'd do at various places. Charlie Chester, obviously with flying and everything like that, that all sort of came out of West London. And it was just a brilliant place for music. People talk about all their different things.
So let's get back to Haven Stables then. Tell me about how was it a roaring success, and how long did it last
ridiculous. For? We rebranded it, and it was always busy.
I'm sorry, what did you rebrand it to?
It was freestyle. We just basically changed all the music from anything commercial to house music.
And the name of it was called Freestyle, right?
Stables.
You did tell me, sorry, but I just needed to.
Have a night called Roadblock as well on
okay.
Friday. Because the owners kept going, "You're making us so much money. Here, have another night." So we did Roadblock. Come back to that story as well, because the night that we called Roadblock was very much part of the genesis of Headcount for a reason. Weird coincidence. Weird coincidence. But yeah, it became a massive success. We did our first birthday party in 1988. And we invited a young DJ to come and play for us, who we thought was very cool at the time. Mr. Danny Rampling came and played. I had to go up to the park in Kensington and sit with him and convince him why he had to come and play DJ at our club. there was no booking agents at those days. You had to pop in and see Danny and say, come and play out, which please, I think it was like 300 quid or something. And it was that weird time of like just, great house music, but, and the Balearic thing as well. So you could play Bill's Got Hair on the Bottle, you could play Richie Havens, you could play French Kiss, and then you could play Carly Simon White. And that to me just was the like the ideal sort of thing, like for me personally, because I had such eclectic music taste, sort of going all the way around Soho looking for an Edie Brickell bootleg that you could play at the end of the night because no one else had it. And it was just an amazing time. And from there, that kind of lasted till about 91. And I was still doing a lot of commercial work as well. And the clubbing then got commercial, it got big, it got about big name DJs, it got about where the clubs were. And that rawness of the local club kind of got taken away by people who were serious club promoters. We weren't serious club promoters. We just got very lucky with the right venue on the right night. And I happened to play music that people liked. And I kind of then, sort of going on mid-20s, I've worked in I've worked in retail, I've worked in call centre marketing, I've worked in another marketing. I don't do sort of all these different jobs that allow me just to go and misbehave whenever I want. And you look back on it now, and we'd finish our gig on a Friday, commercial gig on a Friday in the Feathers, and we'd get in a car and go up to London, and we'd generally go to Beach on a Friday. We'd go to Malibu Stacy, which was
Peach was at Camden, was it?
Peach was, for a while, it was at Coco. Before that, it was at a place called something Garage, this Leisure Lounge. The Leisure Lounge on a Friday.
When you say Coco, you mean what was Camden Palace?
What was Camden Palace?
Yeah, because I knew it was at Camden, and
I think they moved from the Leisure Lounge to Camden, as I recall.
I don't want to take us off your storyline, but whatever happened to Graham Gold?
He lives in Thailand now.
Oh, does he? Okay, let's back to your story then. Back to your story.
He's a lovely bloke, and obviously they've relaunched Peach as well.
Okay,
which was their big night, and they now do Peach reunion stuff, which they've done back at the Camden Palace, Coco again. And again, it was like we'd go to a trance. Peach was quite hard.
Yeah.
We'd go to a trance night on a Friday. Turnmills on Friday was spectacular. With Tall Paul and Co. And then there was this great night called Malibu Stacy. It was at the Hanover Ground. Seb Fontaine, Luke Neville, Craig, and we'd go to those, and we'd hang out. We'd know all the DJs. We might do the occasional night every so often, but I was sort of doing commercial work, and then proper work was starting to get, sort of not take over, but
in the way.
Yeah, it was getting in the way. What we've done though, you see, obviously, my brother and I shared a bedroom. Yeah. So as soon as Kandi, freestyle took off, we're like, well, we're millionaires. We're earning 700 quid a week. When we get a mortgage, because we're not really like each other. We don't see each other outside of any of these things that we're doing. But if we had separate bedrooms, we'd get on fine. So let's buy a house. And these were the days when 100% mortgage, no proof of earnings. So we got on the property. I was on the property ladder at 19 years old. We had a flat that we bought in Greenford. That then obviously when the DJing bit and the club thing, we stopped doing the Thursdays. As the money dies down a bit, you suddenly realise you're not quite as rich as you were, and you've got bills to pay and a mortgage to pay. So that starts taking over, and then you still want to go out on the weekend. So I had to sort of look at some serious jobs, and I ended up getting this job. This would be about 26, 27. I ended up getting a job that was for a company called The Music Store. And what The Music Store did, and you got to remember, these are the days before Shazam, Spotify, forget all that. What they did was, if you were listening to Jazz FM, Country 1035 AM, or Classic FM, you could phone a number and say, I heard a record at this time. We would tell you what it was because we had all their playlists, and then we would sell you that record. We would
Wow.
sell you that CD and post it to you.
I've never
So
heard that. I've never
imagine
heard that come up
process. Can
before.
you imagine that process now? I hear something, I ask someone what it is in person, and they find it for me and put it in an envelope and post it to me. That's what the music store was. And basically, it was far too labour intensive to work, but it was a great. We had all these sort of small radio stations that were looking for ways to earn extra money, and this was like a revenue earner. It also put them directly in touch with their customers, and their customers saying, our phones would go mad when they played a particular record. So it's like, it's instant marketing. Like, well, we just sold 100 of those CDs, and everything they were playing on, particularly on Jazz FM, was import. So like, we're charging people 35 quid for a CD, and they're buying it because there's one track on it. Now, the company itself didn't work out, but Jazz FM loved it. And Jazz FM, there is a famous saying in jazz, which is, how do you make £1 million out of jazz? You start with 10. And that is, that was, Jazz FM was owned by shareholders. It was a small independent company, and they loved having a jazz radio station. Super cool. And everything you ever saw on the Fast Show and all that, exactly right. Right. And all the jazzers, this company that I was working for ended up being bought by Britannia. We were all asked if we want jobs at Universal. And Universal I went into a couple of places, and Universal, I ended up in the Universal compilation office. And they basically said, well, what do you, I said, well, I love the idea of I'm a DJ, so I know all about music. I put compilations together. I said, what really irritates me about compilation, I remember the conversation. What really irritates me about compilations is it's like these 3 minutes an hour, and it's all mixed badly by, a computer or a DJ or whatever. Full 12-inch versions, of stuff that you can't get. I'm spending £100 on 12-inch records, record shops. Maybe, you could do something cool. And they went, it will never work. It's all about getting as many tracks on a compilation as possible.
Okay, put a pin in that. Put a pin in that. It'll never work. Were you not troubled by the dilemma of wanting things to remain exclusive and hard to get hold of, or have you never been that way inclined?
For me, playing records, if it came from me, then great. If I'm double standard, it's like, I want everyone to hear it as long as I've told them all to listen to it.
Right, I get you.
But it is very much that. It's that the compilation for me was as good as it's for all those people who didn't go to the club, or couldn't go to the club. But I wasn't really thinking about compilations at that point. It was just that I'd landed up in Universal Records.
But things like Street Sounds and Master Sounds and things like that, they were already releasing the 12 inches.
Street Sounds was very much that, and Master Cuts was just coming through, and I would collect all the
Master Cuts, not Master Sounds, yeah.
Yeah, and the Street Sounds vinyl, atrociously pressed, but we we're playing those in a nightclub. Feedback, because you're turning all the gains up. Anyway, so this is before I joined Jazz FM, and I'm, Universal owned Britannia Records. Universal trying to find me a job. No. Then Jazz FM ring up, and they're like, look, what you were doing for us, selling these records and marketing them, because part of my job as well was to look at what everyone was buying, and then look at what was being released and find like stuff, and I would then make a leaflet. We would post it to people, and they would then ring us up and order more. And basically, Jazz FM said, look, is there any way this could continue? We're making a bit of money. And I said, well, look, clearly it doesn't work because that company's working for 3 radio stations and they're not generating enough money to actually make it work. I said, but what if, here's an idea, we've got all these people buying these single tracks off of one album, they're all buying them for one track only. And we know what those tracks are. Why don't we put them all on one CD? And they went, right, okay, well, you can join our what is called the enterprise department. And you can take some of these ideas forward because we already have a record label. and they'd been releasing very, very specialist jazz CDs. And they had, and their philosophy was this many people, their most popular show was Dinner Jazz. And they had the biggest listenership on that. So they did Dinner Jazz CDs and they used to release them. They used to sell okay. But what they didn't work out was that the people that listened to it were the real jazzers. And they listened to it because of the presenter and the track she was choosing. But generally they had all these records already because they were jazz collectors, jazz fans. What they completely ignored was all these people that listened through the day, the mums and dads and whatever, who were too, like the jazz department of a record shop in those days was terrifying.
Yeah.
You know, it was Polinex, you know, we're like, hi, what, you want a record by Chet Baker? Ugh. You know, so you wouldn't go into them. It's like the import section of dance records, especially. So all these people weren't buying these records and any knowledge of them. And I just sat there and went, those people that listen to that, they listen to that because like I listened to Tony Blackburn at the time, and I've got those records, and he plays them, and I find one or two, and I'll go, but I'm very particular about what I'm buying. I said, you're not speaking to any of the people that are just listening to the radio show and are intimidated by buying jazz records. I said, so let's take those records. And we saw it. I was very lucky because the company I worked for, 3:00 in the afternoon, you played this record by this guy called Peter Shern, Beyond the Thunder. And I remember this because we sold over 2,000. The record label rang us up and went, you have literally ordered the most copies of this record that we've sold anywhere in the world. And it was because this guy had one track and he was a jazz guitarist. And they would play it. It'd be on the A-list at Jazz FM. Play it all the time. And every time they played it, everyone wanted to buy it. It was on, and everything was on Warner Records, all on import. So you couldn't even buy these records very cheaply. I said, look, they're all £35 records and it's that one track. Put that one track on an album, another 23 tracks just like it. Don't call it jazz. Scares people. Jazz, that word scares people. Let's call it Smooth Moods. And have a drop of water on the cover. Because it's like, you know, calming. I thought this was common sense. Apparently this was marketing genius. And they were like, my God, you know, we sold the first copy of the album and it sold 10 times what their Dinner Jazz. And they're like, Mark, you are a genius. Please go ahead and do whatever you want with our money. Now, if I'd have screwed it up at any point, I'd have been straight out the door.
Yeah.
But I was like, Smooth Moods, 1, 2, 3, 4, off we go. And then we did Spirit of the Street, which was much more of an acid jazz.
So this is 96 to 98 kind of period.
Yeah. So, 96 to 98. And then we did, and I was just pushing my luck. You know, it was too easy just to pick records off the playlist. So
Tell me about outside of the music. Were you still playing at clubs?
I was still DJing and still doing commercial stuff, you know, still doing commercial bits. And every so often I'd use a bit of money to put on a private party night where we would play house music. But I was much more having fun with going out and enjoying the music and enjoying the nights in the way that we did enjoy them back in the day.
So it didn't take you long to get balls deep then, basically.
Oh, really not, no. I was very much a fast learner, and and this is part of the problem with me. I get very. My wife sort of says you're either ADHD or you're on the spectrum or you're something, because you get something and you focus on it, and that's it. You're just like in. Yeah. It's like you have little fads, trends, and anything I'm interested in, I'm just in 110%.
Okay, well, everyone can put two and two together off of that then.
Yeah, but it is. I was coming home at 2:00 in the afternoon. I'm like, and I used to. We look at it now, and I go back and go, A, why am I not dead? And B, although I was never really, I was always, I am a control freak as well. So any indulgence had to be managed.
Right.
Never that point where you're just dribbling in the corner looking at flying sheep. I was never that bad. It was like, I was generally people making sure people got home. That's the donkey over there. That's the puppy. Yes, we can hear you. We know you're there.
I gotta love it. Let me say, but before I forget, we get in. Jimmy Bell is saying hi from Canada. My friend Aisha is saying good afternoon from Birmingham. Sarah Foote, the lovely favoritism, is saying hi from just up the coast just north of Barcelona. And Mr. Frankie Shields, he's asking me, is it 5? I don't know what that question is referring to, Dread. Please elaborate. Carry on.
Very much, yes, an indulger, but also very much a control freak. So it was all about balancing things out and being able to get home and generally get other people home as well. I was very much the mother hen on that.
Good man. Okay, well, I'm going to keep my mouth shut and stop taking you off the topic at hand.
Yeah.
So we're still talking about your fantastic compilations.
We'd have no man left in the field. I'll be the one walking around the dance floors, collecting people, going, getting a cab home now. Come on, stop talking to that strange person. So compilations. So we're at Jazz FM. I am just pushing my luck forward. Spirit of the Street comes out. We had great. It was a time of really good acid jazz. So Down to the Bone. Marden Hill. Just some really, really cool sort of stuff. It's also the stuff you'd be listening to when you got home from these club nights, because it would be more cheaper and it would be always said, those sort of things. So we did this New Cool album, or I suggested the idea of a New Cool. I said, look, we're doing all the stuff from the playlist. We're doing that. Why don't we look at what might be played on the playlist if I was to program it? God help them, they'd never let me near that. So what about giving people stuff that they would, just hiding my headphones from the public? What about playing them stuff that they would also like that we're not playing?
So are you talking directly to Jazz FM now? And are you talking about possibly widening their appeal to a younger audience? Is that what? Well, not necessarily.
Appeal to a less. So we had this, the jazz police, we used to call them, so that if it got too, and these are the days when your license was dictated by the music you played. Jazz FM got its license because it played jazz.
Promise of performance.
Whatever audience. So that's how they got their FM license. An FM license in London, and they had one in Manchester as well, like Gold Dust. They're worth, thousands, hundreds of thousands. So Jazz FM has this license. So basically, if they go off tangent a little bit, the jazz player straight on going, well, where's the song that sounds like you're throwing a piano downstairs? Because that's jazz. It really is. We used to go to some great jazz clubs. Like, it's cool as hell. Like, the boat would just be like that in the corner in a bass guitar. But then you've got things like, you've got offshoots of, you've got Jamiroquai making headway. You've got Lena Conquest. You've got all these different, but they might be on this sort of the acid jazz section of Kiss FM, but they weren't being played on Kiss FM particularly, because Kiss FM was commercial music. Jazz FM's not playing it because if they do, then people start complaining and whatever. And I was like, this music is out there, and it's very much the soul jazz end of that market. It sounds like what you're playing, but you're not playing it, and it's more commercial. So we did New Cool, and we put Blow Your Mind by Jamiroquai. And Conquest by Lena.
New Cool, that's the compilation.
Pardon?
New Cool, did you say?
Cool.
Yeah.
New Cool 1. The New Cool 1 was on Jazz. New Cool 1 and 2 were on Jazz FM. The New Cool 1's very, look it up, it's classic.
That's what surprised me. I didn't realise that you had a hand in that.
Stuff on it as well, because I was being sent on record Jazz FM as well. It's Tone Inc., like the Italian jazz was fantastic. There was some great Japanese stuff as well. So we did all this in New Cool. And of course, New Cool then, it's got Jamiroquai, it's got these bigger artists. It then sells twice as many as Smooth Mood. So Jazz FM at that point then come back and go, you are yet again a marketing genius. Just give people what they want. And please do another one. So I was like, okay, we've done New Cool, and this was all 12-inch version. And they would go, so I'm going to do New Cool. Could I put some more jazzier house on the second CD? So I'm just pushing it a bit further. And it's like Masterwork, George Benson mix, things like that. George Benson, Masterwork mix. And To Be in Love, I think went on well. So first, on New Cool 2, first CD is very much jazz. Second CD is house music. But it's all house music with jazz vocals, whatever. And I'm like, I don't know what to put. I want to make the packaging different. I want to make the packaging sexy. And we're going to do a slipcase, but I want to make it interesting. I don't just want to put a girl on it. No. I want to put something different. And I was off, I was going somewhere, reading a magazine, and this thing found that magazine. And it was like a Brute had sponsored new artists to do interpretations of their, aftershave or whatever. And there's this picture of a girl. And I went, that's what I want. And do you know what? That is the same illustrator as the guy that used to do the cover, used to do the flyers for Pushka. And Pushka with this great sort of offshoot glam house thing, very mixed, very gay, very much part of the Malibu Stacy glam house scene. They would take over stately home. Very much our version of Money Pit.
Chuff, chuff, yeah.
Very, very elite, very, very cool. And at the bottom of it was was an email address. And I emailed this guy and I went, did you used to draw the flyers for Pushka? And he was like, yeah, that's me. I'm from Brighton University and London College of Art. And I used to do their flyers for them. And now I do my own work and whatever. And I was like, oh, my name's Jason Brooks. I mean, have you ever done a CD cover? And he went, no. I said, would you like to do a CD cover for us? And I think he charged us, drew this amazing girl, afro, disco dress, new cool 2, has that on the cover of it in a blue slipcase with house music and, sort of jazz funk on the first CD.
I completely forgot all that. I have a lot of love for that compilation, and I completely forgot the connection. Mad.
So we release it. It sells twice as many as New Cool 1, and I get called into, and they go, Mark, we've got a problem, and I'm like, what would be the problem? And they're like, we love this money we're making from these CDs. But these CDs are clearly not Jazz FM CDs. And we have a bit of a we have a problem that they're on Jazz FM and not representative of Jazz FM. And I felt like, well, change all your music on the radio station. But that wasn't going to happen. So how can we still make this money and release these CDs and, but not have this issue that we've got? And I went, well, how about we start a record label and call it something completely different? We've got the machines in place, the distribution's in place. We know what we're doing. We're licensing. The only thing that changes is the name of the label. And, we give it an identity and they went, well, that sounds like a great idea. What do you think we should call it? And I went, Head Candy. And what should it look like? And I said,
that didn't just come to you, Head Candy. You must have been playing with that.
One of those nights, sitting in a room after a club night, and it was just like, we're going to do a club night called Head Candy, and it's going to, and I was talking with my wife, who is still my wife, and that's where it literally popped. No thought about it. And where it really came from was, it was very much like, eye candy looks good. Mm-hmm. Ear candy, it sounds good. Where are your senses located? They're in your head. Let's write it weird. And it's Head Candy. And it was just one of those eureka moments. Yeah. And all of the things that we did were and we did, when you say we sort of did 2 brands, we've actually done 4. Because off of Head Candy came Stereo Sushi.
Of course, yeah.
And then there was the Acid Lounge, which not many people know about because that was me right off on attack. And Fierce Angel or whatever. But all of these things are literally like, if you think too much about something, trying to manufacture something, sometimes the ideas are just there, and what we call them. They're going to be disco heaven. That's going to be and the whole idea was that Head Candy would not have a style. It would not be. This would just be music for a certain type of person. I was making CDs for myself. I wanted a chill out CD for when I got home. I wanted a beach house CD for listening during the day and not being too in my face, like, Disco Heaven and Disco Candy were both very commercial. But you know what? There is, of course, the 4 o'clock in the morning, so let's have Twisted Disco. And it was all very much coming from my, internal playlist.
What was the timeline between the very first Head Candies and the Twisted Disco? I'm thinking there's probably a 2 or 3 year difference between the beginning.
God, no, we racked them out. I tell you, it was absolutely insane.
But I mean, Twisted Disco came a little bit after Head Candy, right?
Yeah, no, there was a series. So I mean, basically, Twisted Disco was about 2 years into it.
Yeah, I knew it wasn't immediately next to it.
It was how do we push our luck a bit further? You know, and then we got to a point where we didn't want to have too many compilations. Let me tell you about the start of it first. So, New Cool 1 and 2 Foundations. New Cool 3 is actually the first Head Candy CD. And that is the part. And we then went back, and basically it was, I want to make these different. At the time, we were being distributed by Beechwood for an incredible amount to do with the success of Head Candy, because they had a most amazing guy called Duncan Peel who did all of the exports and Head Candy was slightly ahead of its time in that we've seen compilations coming from overseas that were really cool and you get them in the HMV import department. And they were very cool. We had the Hotel Cost compilation. And we were at the start of Head Candy, we did 4 very, very quickly. We did Serve Chilled and New Cool and released them together. And it was like, I think it was, I've got one of the posters, still got one of them. We were given a load of massive, because Jazz FM had a deal with media, they got given a load of bus shelters. So we had a bus shelter camp. And I think it was something like, for befores and afters or something. You listened to New Cool before you went out, and you listened to Serve Chilled.
And very, very much inspiration for hundreds of thousands of people around the world, because I was doing some bootleg tapes and CDs Saturday night, Sunday morning, very much based on that same kind of thing, you know.
So we did those two, and they took off, and they sold just ridiculous. Exports for us were before HMV were very confused by it, because they were like, "Don't get this at all. It's like, you've only got 24 tracks on the album, it's all 12-inch versions, not mixed by a famous DJ, but they do look nice." So we'll take some, and it was very slow in the UK, still more than what Jazz FM was, records were selling, but the exports were ridiculous. We're doing 30,000 on export. There were massive in Europe, massive in the Netherlands. Our first bookings as sort of DJ nights were actually from the Netherlands. Manila was a crazy one, because once we'd released the Chill Out CDs and Beach House, that was getting bootlegged all over Asia. Right. So we weren't selling the records over there, but they were getting bootlegged. And they were being bought by everyone. They were on every beach bar, everywhere. So someone in Manila rang up, I think about 2 years into Head Candy, and said, come and play in Manila. And we were like, who knows us in Manila? And we ended up playing to 5,000 people. It was insane. Wow.
Japan, I'm assuming Japan was big as well.
Japan was big. We realised, because we were with Avex, and I actually got to play in Womb. For me, that was where... So we released the CDs, and they're like, "How are we going to promote it?" I said, "Well, do you know what? What would be really good? Why don't we have a Head Candy radio show?" Okay, I don't. This wasn't a plan, but it just all fell into place. Like, I'm going to get and I said, "Look, you've got all this dead air. What they used to call dead air, which was from 11 o'clock at night till 6 in the morning." I said, "Let me record a show to be played 4 hours on a Saturday night." And we became the taxi driver's favourite radio show, or people at home that would put the radio on when they got back. And it basically ran from 1 till 5 on a Saturday night. And that was another thing that, they were like, "Oh, well, this is working and this is working. What else would you do?" And I think we did our first 5 CDs. It was the first year we just really focused on them. And I was then doing little club nights back in Ealing. We had our sort of break, and we were then going back to sort of promoting to the people that used to come out Haven Stables places. And we were doing a night called Back to Love. We did this night called Back to Love, and it was all the classic 89 records. And this was, sort of around 2000. We'd do every bank holiday. And that's where the Back to Love idea came from for the CDs. And that became a massive seller, because we're digging out Patty Day right before my eyes, trying to find the master for that. There wasn't one. Studio burnt down. I'm speaking to Michael Zager of Let's All Chant, who wrote Patty Day right before my eyes and produced it. And going, Michael Zager, who did Let's All Chant, he was like, yes, I am. I was like, do you have a master of this record? He went, no, the studio burnt down. And I had the original Starway record version. And we mastered from that. And we, de-clicked and popped it and everything else. And it was the first time a lot of these records, bear in mind, again, you're way before digital. Mm-hmm. So it's the first time a lot of these records are available again. That weren't imports. Things like Roberta Flack's Steve Silk Hurley mix about, oh, look out, here it comes. And getting to put these records, that was a joy, real joy for me. The beach houses were lovely because you were just picking out lovely. Serve Chill was just fantastic because you could just be it was more about the themes, it could be as esoteric as you wanted. Disco Heaven was just all my big favourite gay disco records, whatever was around at the time.
Let me ask you a question then, because this may come up in the sort of like the timeline of where we're getting to, but it doesn't sound from the way that you're telling me this that there was a calculated effort to find your niche. It doesn't feel there was a calculated effort to become as cool as you were. Did that just happen by chance?
Everyone hated us because we didn't play the game. And this is part of the problem as well. I did not go to clubs and hang out with other promoters. I did not book DJs to play at the events. I did not, it was like we weren't playing in that market at all. We weren't hiring DJs to compile the CDs. We weren't, and it was a real weird outsider thing that we just operated. We just did what we wanted. And it was stupidly successful, ridiculously successful. We sold over 100,000 CDs in Australia. I mean,
so your A&R skills were unquestionable, clearly, as they say at Jazz FM, a marketing genius. How much weight do you put? You mentioned Jason, and I don't know if you were going to continue talking about him, because he's very, very integral in the development. How much weight do you put on his involvement?
50%. Mm-hmm. I mean, and this is also getting back to that Roadblock. So rewind slightly to Roadblock. Roadblock, the original record, Got Cake in a Waterman, had this great cover, all drawing. All these cars all crashed up. And we basically stole it, as you did in those days for flyers. You just go, I like that, nick it, put it on your flyer. So we did this club night called Roadblock, and we nicked the cover of Roadblock. And one night we're DJing, and this guy comes up to me and says, excuse me, is this your night? And he says, my name is Robin Hughes. And for my university, whatever, I did the cover of that album. And they picked it. Used it, and I'm like, I'm really sorry we've stolen your picture. I said, one day I will make it up to you, right? And so we launched Head Candy, and I'm like, I need a logo for Head Candy. Where the hell do you know your graphic design? You brainstorm, and I was like, I know a graphic designer, Brian Hughes. Looked him up. There's his. I'm like, you're the same guy. You came and saw me once in Eden Broadway about 3 years ago, and he went, yeah, I did. You picked my cover, and I went, I want to draw a logo for it. And he designed the Head Candy logo that we are still using today. This guy that what
was the brief, or what did he say? Because it's the shape. What does it represent?
I was like, we want something, and I'm just thinking something. It's got to be very symbolic, and and we're going very graphic led with artwork. So it's just got to be stylish. I want, just give me your. I'm not going to, it's got to say Head Candy, and it's got to be something, Like I say, give me an iconic logo that's going to last for 25 years.
Something that'll look great in massive polystyrene hanging from the ceiling.
It's going to look spectacular on a T-shirt, or it's going to be, we can make it in any colour. And, he probably would have charged me a lot more. And he's still doing stuff today. He's a brilliant illustrator. And we were still in contact. And again, originally from West London.
Beautiful.
So basically, Ryan sends me, and I've still got it. When I left Head Candy, I took much of the stuff that I had worked on. I went like that in a box. I've got the original fax paper. Remember crinkly fax paper?
Yeah. I was going to say, I'm surprised it's still there, the image, because it fades, doesn't it?
After the designs on, he did these sort of sort of very sort of techno-y heads and all these different things. And I then picked one. And I was
Right.
like, ooh, Star in the Shield, we'll have that. Thank you very much,
Brilliant.
Alex. Right.
Okay, so
Yeah.
listen, I'm going to try and rein this conversation in. We're doing fine for time. However, there's so much
There's so much more.
there's so much content. Let's get back to focusing, and I'll say hi to Jeff Jefferson, who says hello. Hiya, Jeff. How are you, dude? And also to Sean watching on YouTube. Hello, brother. Yes, I'm back now. I'm back every week. Yeah, Jason, pivotal, important. Tell us about that then.
So yeah, like Ryan with his logo just pops up from nowhere. Jason draws us a picture. He then gets asked to do another one by Virgin, and I was like, we need to try this guy out. This is what he was drawing to me at that time. It encapsulated everything we wanted to say about what we were doing. You know, if you could put music into an image, then that was it. You know, that was this lifestyle, this animated cake. Could you possibly get my very expensive trainer off the puppy? Thank you very much. Mike's back.
Thank you, Kate.
Yeah, got a puppy chewing on a £300 trainer. So that look, there was just this very glamour. You've got the glamour house, the handbag house, and we were very much. It was a very much everyone's putting sexy girls in bikinis, this and that on their covers, speakers, whatever. And I very much wanted a whole. I think in my mind, I just wanted this whole thing. I wanted to explain what it would, give it a theme. If you were at the ideal nightclub with the ideal girl or the ideal boy or, you know, the ideal sheep, whatever that is, whatever you're thinking, you would be, this would be the perfect version of it. And you can't get that on a picture. And at the time, you know, there's no AI, there's none of that. This relies on an artist drawing you your impression of what that is. And we would have these conversations. We would basically, I'll say, this is Back to Love. It's a girl in a tracksuit in a club with her friends listening to classics, probably an Adidas tracksuit or whatever. And Jason, because he was a fashion illustrator, when I do Disco Heaven or whatever, I would say it's a girl like Silver. He would know exactly next season's Prada dress or whatever it was going to be and put her in that outfit. Mm-hmm. And you would just be looking at stuff and going, oh, it's on the cover of Vogue this week. You know, like 6 months later, he was really tuned into that. And his artwork now that he's doing very, very stylized art deco, things for very high-end brands. It instantly elevates what you're doing. Mm-hmm. Into this thing.
Definitely. And also cutting edge. And then, very easy to emulate, which we'll talk about a little later on, I'm sure. Yeah. And then, so it inspired a hell of a lot of other mimic, like for likes kind of thing. Yeah. So people don't always get the credit when they come up with the original idea. And that I'm sure we'll talk about the consequences of that a little later on. So the success of the label, Jason's involvement, you started to talk about Virgin and you wanted to sign him up. So then it became exclusive.
It became exclusive to us for CDs and stuff. He was working for Virgin Airlines, doing some. Later on, we were very quite influential. Hello, stop fighting. Anyway, that's what I live with all the time. Anyway,
and that's just his wife.
That's not the wife. Those are the top. We do sound like that when we argue that. Anyway, so basically, yeah, I mean, Jason, obviously, we brought, to a certain extent, Jason got very recognised from the head candies, end up doing very big corporate work. But you only really notice it once we get three. Also, part of it was the weird things that we used to put on the CDs, like "Do not eat,"
yeah,
and weird little sayings and little. If you look at the original head candy CDs, they're the most amazing packaging. First of all. And I would like to point out, not all of this is genius. All I did was take a number of different ideas that I'd seen elsewhere, stick them all together. So unmixed CDs, featured master. That's one thing. That's one thing that I wanted. Number two, packaging. The packaging had to be great. Plastic cases, broken jewel cases, and all of that, and leaflets that you lose. Let's make something that's as good as the music inside. So I'd seen Joey Negro had just or Dave Lee or whatever he is called now, had released a brilliant compilation. I think it was on BBE, and that was via Beechwood as well at the time. And it had this magnet on the back, and it was a cardboard case, beautiful, glossy. You know, if you're going to put a piece of artwork on something, don't stick it on a rubbish bit of paper and put it in a bit of plastic. Put it on something that you could display. You could put, and it was very much that coffee table idea of having something that you could get out. There was nothing better than when you were around someone came round to your house, or you were around at someone's house, them going, oh, have you heard this? Or have you seen this? And getting something out and you going, oh, what? This is fantastic. You know, double vinyl, whatever. And I wanted that for the label. I wanted to say, we weren't doing a huge amount, we didn't have a huge marketing budget. We had the radio show. And it was all word of mouth. It was people going to people's houses and going, have you seen these? These are great. And then them going out and buying them. Mm-hmm. And pivotal to the whole thing was once we got a few of them together, they all just looked brilliant together. They all looked amazing. And it was pivotal to sort of HMV coming on board. By now we're about 5 CDs in. They're selling really well in overseas on export, but it's still not really hit in the market. Not, you know, people that know. And HMV came to us and said, well, we're doing one of these, you know, three for £30 type thing that they used to do on their end racks. And they took the first 5 CDs. They put them all out on an end rack. And all it was like Heck Anything at the top, and then just all these CDs together. Only 5 individual titles. And it went lunatic. Like people would just buy them. All of the ones in the sale, all went in the top 10 compilation chart because people were buying so many of them. But they'd buy all of them because they all look so good together. So it wasn't just one. It was like, right, I'm going to buy all 5 of those. And that's when it really started rolling. And it was probably year 2 that it then started to take off. And you sort of I set myself, we're only going to do this many a year. One, you know, we'll do maybe 5 or 6 titles. We'll never do a mix CD. We did do a mix CD. We'll never do a mix CD, and they're all those. And that was where it started to take off. And from there was when we then started to get asked to do club nights. And we went over and it was weird because it was overseas first. The famous Mike Van Loon was one of the first people to book us abroad. He ran up and, hey there, I'm Happy Mike, the Dutch guy. And he was representing, he was very, very, very clever guy, very clever, working for different brands. And they were having this massive corporate event in a place called Beurs Verberlage in Amsterdam. And they booked us and a chill out group. I also want to do some artist stuff. We'd signed a band called Afterlife, an amazing chill out band. And we took Afterlife over to do a chill out set, and I did a DJ set. And that's how I met everyone that we brought into Headcandy was someone we met along the way. There was never anything calculated in that I want to hire this guy or that guy, I want to get that DJ. I found people that understood the brand, and we gradually wrapped them in. Andy Norman, one of the longest term Headcandy DJs, I've kind of dragged him with me through my life. I met him in West London at Haven Stables when he popped in, he had his brother's records. And he was like, can I DJ a set? And we were like, yeah, come in and do a set. And then I got him a job at one of the places I was working. And then he ended up working with me, and I was like, Norm, I need some backup. Come give me a hand at Jazz FM. And he worked at Jazz FM and did stuff with their CD when I was more focused on the Headcandy stuff. And we're still working together now.
It's beautiful. And of course, there's other DJs that have come and gone that we won't be able to mention them all now because we'll forget. But I know personally, John Jones was working for you quite a fair bit. Joey Gill was in the chat saying hi earlier as well. I know he's been working for you with you in the UK and the likes, and a lot of other regular DJs that you've worked with. So we're talking 2000. Am I right? 2099.
So 2001, 2000 is where it starts
really
taking off. Mm-hmm. And we do our first night in London at a venue called Rouge. venue called Rouge, which is a weird underground venue that's gone now, knocked it down, at Charing Cross.
Okay.
And we do this party, and we're launching a head candy. We're going to do a head candy. And I'm used to my little parties of 350 odd people in a suburb. And we take over this London nightclub, and it has a capacity of 900 people, and 3,000 people turned up to get in. The queue went from the front door around the building twice, Tottenham Court Road, and it was absolutely insane. It was kind of like that was the beginning of the story, where suddenly the Mix Mag are then writing about it, and DJ Magazine featured a CD on the cover.
Because it was billed as the lifestyle brand, wasn't it?
Yeah,
Pretty much.
It was a lifestyle. What bloody lifestyle is this? I'm living in the flat in Greenford. I'm hardly driving around in the Mercedes or anything.
Well, that will be the misconception of.
The massive misconception was you owned head candy. Everyone I speak to, you owned head candy. You owned head candy. Why did you sell it? I'd have owned it. Why the hell would I have sold it?
Mm-hmm.
So wrapping that sort of section up, we basically CD thing is snowballing. They're getting pushed to release more CDs. So I was like, look, we can still release more chill out CDs, but we'll call them something else. We'll call it the Acid. And we launched this series with some guys that I know, a guy called Chris Beeman, who's a brilliant musician. And we launched this series. You should look them up because they are genius, but slightly ahead of their time still. And it was a comic. You got a comic with it. It's about these characters. And they basically lived in the Acid Lounge, which was a restaurant, a bar that went through time and space, and Elvis was still there. And they'd play all this weird music. So we had the Acid Lounge in space, the Acid Lounge goes west, which was all chill out cowboy music.
Very, very conceptual.
Very, very conceptual. And the sounds showed just how conceptual it was. But then everyone was asking for more beach house. There was a huge amount of soulful house that wasn't full-on dance floor stuff. It was very, very beach housey. And they were like, so much of it. I was like, I want to release more, but I don't want to do 2 beach house albums a year. Do one of each of these albums a year. So we created Stereo Sushi. And basically the 24 tracks that weren't the ones that went on Beach House, anything else went on Stereo Sushi.
Right.
And Stereo Sushi, again, very much inspired by Mike Van Leeuwen. He took me out, we were walking around Amsterdam one day, and we went past this restaurant. It was a bar or a restaurant, and it was called Stereo Sushi. And they played records in there and served you Japanese food. I was like, that's a brilliant name for a record label. We're having that. Again, and we and because I was really into Japanese culture and toys and things like that, we kind of did it of like, the 12, it was all written in that very Japanese style.
Yeah.
For the love of 12-inch records of house that you will love. That they used to sort of translate stuff.
I think when I mentioned about Japan earlier, that I completely forgot. That was in the back of my mind. I thought you'd got big in Japan and then that influenced the releases, but no, I got that completely wrong.
The Japanese importers rang us up and went, we won't be selling this in Japan. This is like stereo fish and chips. We don't understand it. And you're like, but again, it was very much a DJ's thing as well. That everyone, it sold less than head candy, but again, it was very much loved because 24 12-inch tracks and the Richard Earnshaws of the world and all the rest of it. Just brilliant records. And I got to play around with all this Japanese branding and stuff, do stuff. So the CDs are going along. Then we go to Ibiza. We basically had what no one knows. Our very first trip to Ibiza, we were going to have a deal with Pasha, and then they changed their mind and kicked us out. I think 2 days after we'd started, and basically that's how I met Paul Wilkins. Because they were doing a night called Eden, which was at Eden. No, it was called Miami,
right?
And it was at Eden. And we got given the back room. They gave us a back room, and we had head candy in the back room, and it was a massive success. Then some promoters came to us the next year and said, we've got a night at Es Paradis, El Divino. Sorry, we've got a night at El Divino. Would you like to come and do head candy there? We'll pay you to do this night. And And we went in there that year, and it just, I think that year was a really, really good one. Then the second year, we went in on our own. We took it over on our own. First year was great. It was with the guy that used to run all the 1830s holidays and stuff and took the ticket. First year went mad. Pretty hazy, all that club stuff.
Yeah, I wonder why.
Yeah, but no one. And the reason they wanted to give us the Saturday night was it was changeover. No one went out on a Saturday. This was the night of doom, as they called it. The year that we started was the year EasyJet started running flights, and suddenly the weekend clubbing thing, or or leaving on a Friday night became the thing.
The thing to do.
And all of a sudden, Saturdays are the night, and we had it, and it was absolutely lunatic. And then then doing regular nights at Pasha, with nights up and down the country.
Was there a palpable Was there a palpable feeling of your tribe at this point? Did you feel that these are your people now?
It was crazy because we have no social media. You got no social media. You got no Instagram. You got no Facebook. You got no nothing. What you had was chats. What you had was Don't Stay In.
Yeah.
Which was Don't Stay In was the Facebook of its day. The clubbers. And it was that community. And we had Head Kandi chats going. And I beat a spotlight.
And let's not forget MySpace.
MySpace as well. We had a big old MySpace following as well. But that was, and it was, we were still putting cardboard things in the CDs for people to mail back.
Yeah.
That's what it was like. And it was, you would go and see, that's how we met, Joey Gill. We would go up to Birmingham to do Gatecrasher, we'd go up to Bed to do Head Kandi. And you're meeting all these people on a regular basis, and it was fantastic. It was the height of what it was, and the first sort of the 5 years, and I always sort of count sort of the 2 years almost of Jazz FM as well as part of Head Kandi. It was very much the growth of that. And we've ended up with a record label brand, whatever you want to call it. Anything's what you call it, brand. But we ended up with this thing that basically put Jazz FM into profit for the first time and then something terrible happened. And everything's great. So do you want to know anything about anything to do with the amazing years of Head Kandi? Because we're coming to the end. Mm-hmm. We're coming to that bit in the film.
Well, I want to ask you, when it began, because I was working on Choice at the time, heavily supporting the music Choice. Well, actually Galaxy. Really, really credible brand, fantastic support for everything that you was doing. And then I distinctly remember there was a moment where people started to get a bit snobby about Head Kandi, like you'd sold out. So are we getting to that point now?
It wasn't, well, no.
And did you ever feel that? Because I've got nothing but love for the brand. As you say, I keep looking over my shoulder because I've got all these vinyl behind me and I just want to go and grab it back to love because I know exactly somewhere. But it was the release schedule, the quality, everything about it was unquestionable. But then you became in my eyes, you became a victim of your own success to the snobs.
I was gone by then.
Okay.
And this will no one really. If you put a year on it of when people are saying that. Now it is the nature of everything that if a company owns something instead of an individual, they are going to want to make as much money out of it as possible. And you can and my argument all the way along with the brand was, let's be Ferrari and let's make less and charge more and, let's not rinse this completely. And let's only be in the club that that is that many people. Yeah, we can let another 1,000 people in, but they're going to be not going to be the shit, but there's going to be an element.
Yeah.
And you're then going to piss off your core market, eventually. And the only way that people stay with things forever is by keeping it, making it feel special.
Authenticity.
Yeah. And companies aren't keen on that, strangely enough. Companies want to make money. And if companies have other areas that aren't making money, then you come under pressure to make more money for them to cover those losses. Now, we had an amazing time. We had a most amazing life. And to a certain extent, what kept it under control was I would threaten to walk out. So that was my only, like, it was like, at one point, we were making millions for the company. I was still getting paid what I was being paid. I am making lots of money off of DJing at these events, but I then get myself a bonus scheme offered to me. But it was only when I threw my toys out the pram a lot of the time that they would listen to me. And every decision that we did make, it was lucky that it was a success, or I would have been out of my ear.
Uh-huh.
And that was very much, but it was great. And it's those first sort of 3-4 years, which was an absolute roller coaster. And we did no wrong. We could do no wrong. It was like, I want to do artist albums. And they were like, well, artist albums are very expensive. And I sat, there used to be a thing called Meedem in the south of France, where you would all go and sit and talk about your records and whatever, and meet people from other record labels. And I sat once. There's a hotel at Meedem that everyone sits and has drinks at. And this guy realised that we were from Kandi. We had loads of promo CDs. We gave him a load of CDs, and he was just giving us free drinks all night. So we were like, we were everyone's best friends. So people are coming to sit with us, so we were getting free drinks. And at one point, I'm sat between the two guys, and I'm Sten Hallstrom, I'm Stonebridge. That's it. And at this point as well, even though we're kind of massive in the business, I'm still a fan. I'm meeting people, and Sten goes, I want you to meet my friend. This is Eric Cupper. And I'm like, so your degrees of motion then? He's like, your friend Knuckles' best mate. You've done all. You play the piano on most of all the Def Jam productions. So it's like, oh my God, you're staying there. So I said to Stonebridge, I'm like, you're a legend. Why have you never made a record? Why have you never made? And he went, no one's ever asked me. They always just asked me to remix records. And I went, okay, well, how much will it cost? And he was like, I could probably do it for about £12,000. In my studio at home, and I'll ring up some friends so they can sing the vocals. And so we're making a Stonebridge album, and it's going to cost us 12 grand. And he's sending records in, and I'm like, yeah, this is great. It's got Kenny Thomas on. That's right. Oh, this one's got Renato. Hello. Who's this girl called Therese? And it was just this process. And we got the time to do the cover and the artwork, and then we're talking about records. And he's like, well, we do a single. Let's do a single. How hard can it be? And I went, well, this one's great. It was so catchy. But it's a bit, it needs a bit of chunk underneath it, a bit of cowbell. So he gave it to his friend called JJ, and he made the sort of the definitive, got that wow bass line, the kick on it and stuff. And he sent me this record, and I was just like, this is, okay. We released it, didn't really do anything. And then it just built and built and built. And I was like, we should re-release it. And then we'll make a video. Oh, we're going to make a video as well. So this is all the fun stuff. Like, okay, I'm going to write a treatment for a video. But we never asked them. And I said, you know what we should do? We'll do, because we're going to release 3 singles. So why don't we, Lord of the Rings, let's film them all together. That's got to be cheaper, surely. We'll do everything in the same place. I said, what we'll do is we'll do, girls getting ready for a night out. We'll do girls driving to the club and then going into the club. And these were the 3, if you watch Put 'Em High, Take Me Away and Freak On, they tell a story, and it's all the characters all the same way through the story.
Okay, I'll have to go back and check that out.
Yeah, this is the joyous stuff, like being involved in all of these things, all this creative stuff, and not feeling like I had responsibility. We had an accounts department, and we had all the machines were there to do everything, and I just got to play with stuff. And generally, and then all of a sudden we re-release Put 'Em High, and it goes to number 3 in the charts, and G's on top of the pops. And you're like, what the hell is going on? A young guy gets brought into the office one day by another guy that we knew was doing some production stuff. You've got to hear this guy sing. This guy is amazing. It's just, and I'm looking, I'm thinking, it looks like Michael Stipe in America. What's your name? Peyton. And you're like, okay, he plays this record, it's got horrendous. If you listen to one of the Disco Candies, it's got the original version of Higher Place on it, which has this sort of electric guitar going through it, like fun. And at that point, I was like with Penn, I said, we need to make more records with you. I think Higher Place should be remixed. He was like, really? I was like, and I know just who to do it. So I ring up Eric Cupper, and I'm like, Eric, this record, it's Shine On, but it's called Higher Place. So just make it sound like Shine On with you. And we were doing a night at Pasha, and Eric had come over to play, and he had like the first, put it on. It was a CD. And he put it on a CD, and he went, I've done it, I finished it. And we literally, at Pasha, I'm like, oh, God, it fills me up now. Remember putting it on in Pasha, and it's that bit where it goes, din, 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 and it is just like, do you know how lucky I feel? But it just does that, and it's like, we're moving up. And it was, moments in your life where you just go, I'll never forget that. I will never, ever forget those. That's what made it so special. Everyone got to enjoy it. They were all at the club, they were queuing at Pasha. We would release tickets, they'd sell out straight away. And it was a tribe. It was very much that. And that was what I did not want to ever go away. That was and then, basically what happened was Jazz FM got bought. And it went from being an independent company, Guardian Media, bought Jazz FM because they wanted the radio lot. They didn't want anything else. Weren't even fussed about Headcandy. They owned the Guardian Media. They owned the Guardian. They had all the smooth stations around the country. They wanted a London FM license and offered Jazz FM shareholders 3 times the share value. Get it? So they get the radio station. Everyone leaves with all their shares. All the directors will go, we're off. See you later.
See you later.
And leave us in the hands of the Guardian Media Group. And I am then put into an office with a group of. They're running. Guardian is what they call it's like a charity. So you don't have shareholders. Guardian, set up by a very rich guy years ago to keep the integrity of newspaper. So no one really has a share in the company. They've just got very high elevated positions. They don't really answer to it. They all do what they want. And they were very, very old school radio. Very, very that BBC radio type. Got to a certain level and moved to different companies. And we were like the lunatics in the asylum. As far as they were concerned, they did not get us at all. We would, at Headcandy, we had this brilliant team at Headcandy, work their asses off. And they would come in, we would come in, maybe we wouldn't come in at all on Monday because we've been working all weekend. We used to have terrible Tuesdays where no one would talk to each other.
Okay, so that's where that came from then.
Yeah, terrible Tuesdays. Friday we would leave early, but everyone would probably be in the office for 12, 14 hours in between doing stuff. And we'd be there till it was done.
What, between Tuesday and Friday, 14 hours maximum?
Yeah, get it. All down the pub. Now, what happens is they take one look at it, and I'm chaos as well. If I knew then what I knew now, it's a classic phrase. But I was, just like away with the fairies, like going, make a video, sign this person, do a remix, do all these people. It's like, no, we want someone to sit in the office and vary numbers and, in charge of people. This is why it works. The chaos is why it works. The creativity is why it works. And it's like, how can we make more money? And how can we do this now? I'm like, no, you don't. And I'm sitting there going, no, don't do that. Don't do this. Stop that. So they go to Sony Music. They basically go headhunting. Because Mark should, we're going to hire someone and put him in charge. And they hired a guy who had been big at Sony in international export marketing company. And there is also a phrase in the record industry that says you basically get hired to a level of your own incompetence, which means that's the place you stay because you can't really do that job. Brought this guy in, and the first thing he was like, yeah, it's brilliant. It's all really good. I'm really down with it, really cool. Hire him, he's above me, he's earning more money, completely clueless about the brand, has actually never released a record or done anything like that. Bit of a marketing bloke. And but thinks he's super cool. What we'll do is I want to take that model of Headcandy, but we want to do R&B. UK R&B.
Yeah.
We're going to sign, can't remember what his name was, Connor something. He'd had 2 failed singles and he had 3 albums up for sale that everyone had turned down. We're going to sign him. We're going to sign the Brand New Heavies. I was like, yeah, no, I'm all with them.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, I'm on with that.
We'll do the Brand New Heavies. He was like, yeah, but we're going to sign them for, 125,000. I was like, oh, no, you're doing the head cannon. We go and approach people. They work with us on a project. We get it as cheap as possible. We put everything into the creativity and the marketing. And that, no. We hire the best video director. So they spend. So with Brand New Heavies, I think they signed them for a vast sum of money, and they then spent 90 grand on 3 videos. I was just like, this is insanity. But he's like, no, Mark, because we'll move Head Kandi in some bigger venues and charge twice as much, and we'll release twice as many CDs, and that'll cover this over here. My friend. And I went, and then it got down to individual members of staff. We created a whole Peyton album, and I'll say this now because I will be that person. We had a Bonnie Bailey album and a Peyton album. I had massive success with Cambridge. And I'm not going to name the person, but I said, we've got these 2 albums, and I fully believe in these albums. We've made over £250,000 on Stone. The whole thing cost about 50 grand, start to finish, which is an insane amount of money for releasing a record and 3 singles and doing videos. So I've got 4 things, and Eric Cupper produced the Bonnie Bailey album for 10 grand, and he produced Peyton's album for 10, or I think one was 5 and one was 10, and they were both brilliant. All they had to do was sell 5,000 copies, and we'd done 100,000. And he went, well, Mark, here's where my problem is. Got a problem with Bonnie Bailey. She can't write and she can't sing. Like, okay.
So they're just thinking of the publishing immediately. Yeah.
Right. And then he went, and my issue with Peyton is that he's gay. Oof. And I'm like, you do know that you're the head of probably the gayest dance record label brand in the world. Right?
So blinkered.
As many husbands as I wanted at this point in time, because have you been to our nightclubs? We were the most fabulously brilliant, accepting, before it even became a thing of any sort of definition of any sort of gender or stereotype, any of that, being aware of any of that. Head Kandi at Pasha was probably the friendliest, most mixed, gay, straight, whatever it was.
Fully inclusive. Fully
yeah,
inclusive.
I mean, it was ridiculous. And it never, the advent of media and stuff makes us all very aware of it, but we weren't even aware of it. It wasn't even something we questioned. If you were fabulous, if you were the right person, you got in.
Yeah. So it wasn't like you courted it and encouraged it. It was at the time.
It was what it was. It was just we were fabulous, and the music. We were.
So I mean, we've been talking for a while. So I'm still thinking we're 2003-ish, or a little bit later.
2003, 2004.
Yeah, because also the record industry is struggling then as well, though. If you think about it, because the record industry is struggling big time as well then, because of the digitization of everything.
Well, there was no real digital for a good. I think that was coming in 7, 8. Really, we were doing vinyl. Still,
okay. You weren't, because I'm thinking, Track Source began in 2002. So, but obviously that's on a much minute scale. We're not talking about on the global, even though it was global. You know what I'm saying? So for yourselves, that change wasn't affecting you that much then.
Going through the roof. Bear in mind though that we're also not. People look at things people look at things from the standard commercial way of doing things. We weren't doing any of that. We were signing records that no one really wanted, that weren't appearing on any other compilations. So we were offering minimal advances and giving lower royalties. Our dealer price was more than was like $10.50 instead of the standard compilation $8. So although people were getting a lower royalty, we were selling 30,000 copies, well 50,000 copies of an album where they got the publishing, where they got the royalty on a much higher dealer price. There were only 24 tracks on the album instead of 50 that were on others.
So they're getting a bigger share.
Double of being on our album. And we're selling them with no TV advertising, none of these things. So our cost of producing the thing was remarkable. And our cost of marketing, I don't think we ever spent more than £5,000 or £10,000 on marketing an album. And they were doing 50,000 in the UK and another 50 overseas, 100,000 copies of a £10.50 album.
The press were doing all that for you, weren't they, really?
Yeah. So, and word of mouth. And the club nights. Club nights are branded exactly the same as the CDs. People go to the club nights up and down the country. So then they're seeing the CDs. The look is all the same. So that obviously is making a major thing. So everything's running perfect. Then this guy comes in, and that's the fly in the ointment. Then he starts trying to pick off members of staff. He wanted to get rid of Andy Norman, which I took exception to. And also one of the other girls that worked for us because he found her a little bit too ghetto.
It's like a sketch. It's like it is like a TV sketch.
Now the problem is the guy signed. Well, the guy ended up signing an artist and having a big deal about it, so saying how wonderful he was going to be and how big he was going to be, and then found out that he was gay, and he'd signed him, and I was like, that's just divine intervention. That is just thank you, G. But this was the problem, and I found myself for the last year, probably of Head Kandi that I was there, I was fighting to keep it as it was and doing very much behind the scenes and coming under a lot of stress. And then I was working more and more. So, and I'm getting unhappier and unhappier. And I'm also then combating that unhappiness by potentially overindulging in certain things, which is not good for you either. And you get into this situation where I literally it was the 5th birthday, and I've not a nervous breakdown, but I wouldn't come out of the bed. I was like, I'm not coming. If I go, I'm going to announce I'm leaving. Like, literally, my wife was there. We married at the time, darling. And I said, like, and we had friends, and we were all waiting to go up there. And I went, I can't go. I literally, and that was when there were certain factions in Head Kandi that we'd brought in, where Kate rang up and went, he can't come down. He's a mess. He's lost the plot. And I think they were like, make him come down. You make him come down here now. And these were some so-called friends that we thought were part of the group. And that's where you started to see it. The money and the success, like everything, affected some people.
So did you get out before you started to see the results of changes, or did it all start to go tits up?
No,
Hold on, what was the question? Did it go tits up after you'd left, or did it already start to be tits up when you were there?
No, I maintained control of it, but it was killing me.
Right.
That's the problem. And I said to my mum, I said, what do I do? She went, you leave. I went, well, what? All this money money we're making. She went, don't matter. Just doesn't matter. Just leave. So what we did was we went to a group within Head Kandi. We went, we're going to leave. We're going to set something new up. We're going to take we've got we had backing for it. And we're going to create, and basically I spent about 4 months behind the scenes just coming up with what was going to be the next Head Kandi.
Well, let me ask you a question then. At this point, before you went, so I've got something in the back of my mind, and I kind of touched on it earlier with regards to the intellectual property of Head Kandi, Jason being involved. What is it in the back of my mind that I can't clear up? There was a lawsuit. Someone used Jason, or you took Jason, or what is that? What's in the back of my mind?
Basically, so this is what happened. We said we are going to. What I foolishly did was on a chat board, and there's still some of these chat boards.
Ah, you announced your plan.
Well, I basically went. It's true. We are leaving, and it will be Head Kandi, but Head Kandi. That statement will be taken to court.
Okay.
So basically, we said to Jason, now Jason is an artist. Jason is working for other companies. Jason isn't working for any other record labels, but his contract is up. Jason's want to come and work for us. We'll pay you this much. We're going to launch what we called the Tokyo Project. Going back to love of Japan. We're going to launch Tokyo Project, and it was with the guys that owned one of the bars that we were famous at in Newcastle. It was called Stereo. And we had these two guys backing us, and we were literally going to, we took the team. It's Jerry Maguire all over again. I literally went, I'm leaving, who's coming with me? Right? And a load of us went, we set up offices in Soho. We're on a bit of a roll now as well, bearing in mind we think we can do it wrong as well. A bit of ego as well with me. We can do no wrong. And if we transplant this and do this, we'll follow it and we'll get the other club. Well, do this. There's part of it, and because no one knows about it, is that we then get taken to court. We then get slapped with an injunction. You can't release anything. Jason Brooks' artwork is basically representative of Head Kandi. Head Kandi's trademark is represented in Jason Brooks' artwork. Now, it's basically like saying, like, if you used a picture of the Mona Lisa for your brand, that Rembrandt couldn't paint for anybody else. Like, it's that very much that Jason's artwork was so tight, and it's true, Jason's artwork was so tight with Head Kandi. But that's a risk you take, and you always keep Jason happy, and he never wants to leave. Because you can't own someone. I mean, part of this lawsuit, where there was like work slavery things brought up and all sorts of, because you can't say to someone, you can never work for someone else.
Right.
We own your artwork. His artwork is before Head Kandi. His artwork is listed alongside Head Kandi with campaigns that he did for Virgin Airways, various people. But what they were saying was, Jason, you can't work for anybody else, and you can't draw pictures for anybody else. And we own your creativity, essentially. I could use the word Head Kandi because that's a made-up word. That's fine. But also this thing I've written on the chat board, they're like, well, Mark Doyle is now going to be passing off his new brand. So this was the lawsuit. And they hired one of the biggest law firms in London to fight this. I walked out of Head Kandi. My leaving date, this guy,
shall remain nameless. Tusser.
He would have to remain nameless because there's too much that went on with that.
Yeah.
I'm sure people could research it. Anyway, not saying the word.
Are you being told off there? Are you being told off there?
Basically, we already have these great lawyers. And they said, look, we're a brand new company. We've got a little bit of finance. Release our first day via universal distribution. And we're not, basically, we go to court and we are in for, it was about £135,000 in legal fees before we even released. We can't even release the CD. We can't even talk about what's going on. We can't tell anyone what's going on, which is why a lot of people think I sold the brand, because suddenly I'm out of Head Kandi, everything goes silent, and then around a year later, we launched Fierce Angel. But that year was Tokyo Project, us losing £500,000, being dragged through court on this completely spurious case. The day that I left, everyone was like being all nice. This guy's being all nice. We'll go for a drink. And he comes up to me while we're at a drink. He went, by the way, what was it they were going to buy the drink? I was going to put some money behind the bar, but I'm not now. But I don't really want to. And then he left. I was like that. And they called me into the office and they went, we owe you 30 grand bonus. And we're taking you to court. And that was my leaving day at Head Kandi after making them.
2004, 2005?
Pardon?
2000.
That was 1995.
2005. 95. Yeah. 2005.
2005, sorry, yes. 2000. I always like to think I'm 10 years younger. Yeah. So that was the last day. We basically spent a year fighting the case. This is why, and it bankrupted the company. We won the case. You can actually look up the case online because it's a landmark case in design and creativity and whatever. So what happened was we won the case. Now, basically, when you win a case, they have to pay all your costs. But the Guardian were a bit cleverer than that. The head of the Guardian, come back and realised what this guy had done and got them into a lawsuit. It probably cost them £500,000 quid. Meanwhile, he's lost £1 million quid on signing 3 artists that nothing happened with, that all have failed and incur massive losses. So he's done all of this, and he goes, talks into the guy and goes, you can clean up your own mess because you're fired, but you're cleaning up all this first. And then he called me into the office and he went, right, here's what we're doing. We had basically, I think we declared about £250,000 in costs, legal costs. And we had brilliant lawyers who had, really supported us. But they said, if we were doing this for real, it's £250,000, maybe we can help you out in some, do it cheaper. Guardian came to us and they went, we'll give you half of your legal costs because we're going to take you to main court. So you start off in one court, which is where they hear your case, win or lose. You can then escalate it, at which point you'll then double all your legal costs and you have the same argument again in high court. And this is how companies bankrupt other companies, is by keeping them in court, keeping them in legal things, because it's a staring court. If you can pay for the legal fees and you think you're right, you could win, but you could also lose. Now, what happens when you get escalated to high court is they don't have to pay any of the fees from the original court case till that case.
Right.
Which time, you might get £1 million back. But you've got to have £1 million to spend.
It's heavy, man. Heavy.
Fantastic game. Now, I'm going for all this. This, in terms of creativity, and you go from here in terms of living the life to just like, I'm in court in a suit, and they've told me that I've said this and this, and there are also a variety of people that they went to give professional opinions on about stuff. So you've got people that have actually given evidence against you in court. People that you employed are giving evidence against you. People that you worked with and licensed loads of records from, certain record labels, have given evidence against you. The one great thing about life is when they escalate it to the High Court, they have to give you all of their, what do they call it? It's called discovery.
Yeah.
They have to give you everything they've got.
So it all comes to light, and you can see where the knives have come from.
I've got it all in a folder. I've got everybody's statement. I've got everybody that was involved in it. And half the people don't even know that I know. And half the people, when you back there, hello, mate.
Yeah.
But what is the point? You could go on about this. You could, go on for ages about it. Every so often you get a chance to tell something.
To tell the story.
You have to laugh.
Well, you do. Let me just say then, so we are, and I'm happy to continue, let's carry on. We're 2 hours into this conversation, would you believe?
It's still part 2.
I'm happy to carry on chatting. So I just want to frame this. We're still live on YouTube. We're still live on Facebook. Hi to anyone passing through. Incredible story, fascinating story. Go back and check it out from the beginning. So we're going to continue. So let's be aware of.
It's a lot less interesting.
Well, I was going to say, I'm sure it won't be any less interesting, but let's try and condense it now.
Yeah, no,
so continue.
That was 20 years ago. So basically, it bankrupts. What is going to be Tokyo Project. We have loads of ins and outs with the finance people. I basically have to make my friends who trusted me to come with me redundant. Now, at the same time as this, of course, on the Head Kandi side, Head Kandi don't have the Jason Brooks artwork, and they released a few CDs with really good artwork on. And they're not doing very well. They're losing money via this guy. And basically, Ministry of Sound. Now, everyone complains about Ministry of Sound, blames Ministry of Sound. Ministry of Sound had nothing to do with my departure from Head Kandi. In fact, Ministry of Sound offered me a job to go back and work for Head Kandi. They came in and bought the entire brand off the Guardian. They went, look at this, absolute shit. Mark's taken half the people. You've got no one doing this. You are, and you're this much in debt, for the court case. Just give it to us. We'll buy it. We'll buy all your problems. That's it. We'll solve it. And that's what they did. They got, Ministry of Sound got Head Candy on a very good deal, very, very astute. They had already offered us assistance with distribution of our new label. And they called me in and they took back a lot of the original team that I'd made redundant. So they got to go back, which was great. And then I had to make a decision. Do I go and work for Ministry of Sound and do Head Candy? Or do I do something else? And I just thought I'd be putting myself back in the same position that I'd already had myself in. And I knew what Ministry would do or would want to do with the brand. And I knew that me and Lohan, we're kind of really good sort of associates, friends, whatever, and the people at Ministry, we've always had a respect for each other. I went in for a couple of interviews with them and stuff, and I was just like, you're not gonna like me. I'm too opinionated for this. We are not going to play well together. It's not going to be what you want. It's not going to be what I want. And you're going to want to do this with the brand, and it's best you do it, because I think I'm just going to be a pain in your arse. And I could see that, and it was like, and they did what they did they do what they do with things, which was they made it massively successful. They made 10 times more money out of Headcount, and took it 10 times further.
So that's probably then when the people started turning their nose up at it.
That's where the core audience, that's where the sellout thing comes, that's where that goes. But if you're a company that just spent X million quid on a brand, you are not going to spend time, keeping it all nice and sexy. Companies like Head Candy used to be are companies for sole owners of business. They are for the Steve Jobs of this world. They are for, those sort of people where the control is maintained. And some could argue that when Steve Jobs passed away, and, you could say, is Apple stuff as good as it was? Is it as sexy as it was? Is it,
it is about the integrity, isn't it, really, of what it was about, and pandering, if that's the right word, to the crowd. You mentioned about sexy there. Chris Warren's making some comments. Actually, I must remember to ask you the question. Let me roll back and see if I can find that question that Chris asked, because we're going back and we're going to carry on with your story. Chris, I think it was you that asked me that. Oh, he is. So yeah, basically we've just covered this a while ago. Chris Warren was saying he thought that the Ministry of Sound had purchased Head Candy brand from you after a year after they had purchased House Sexy from him. And then he's saying he was told by Ministry of Sound that they had bought House Sexy to try and take some of the Head Candy market.
Yes, definitely. You're not being stupid. I mean, it wasn't just and House Sexy, another great band, but it did have an illustration of it. And it was house music. But you know what? Imitation is the severest form of flattery, and everybody else was doing. There were so many other labels that were actually fully ripping off the artwork. It's just. I always think there is enough to go around for everyone. If someone has one on it, then you can just have enough.
Okay.
That sort of thing. But no, never bought it. They bought it from the Guardian Media Group. And they got a very good deal.
Okay, so let's move on then and start talking about Fierce Angel. Some of the prouder moments of that and how that moved forward and the.
Well, we got very lucky because basically we've wrapped up on Tokyo Project. We've lost this much money. I've basically managed to get my bonus that they owed me at Jazz FM, and we had savings in the bank. And I just said to Kate, we just do it ourselves. So we just do it small, do it really small, and do it ourselves. And we got brilliant partners from all around the world. A brilliant label known for their massive commercial, very very clever northern chap, and they were brilliant, and they loved Head Candy, and they went, well, we'll fund the album, we'll release them. So that's what we did at Fierce Angel. We just basically do this, and we'll do small events. And and basically it was the first 5 or 6 albums were great. We did much more sort of photographic but heavily photoshopped stuff instead of illustration. It was really interesting. It's a little bit more commercial. than perhaps I wanted it to be.
Musically, did you start to ever? Did you find yourself having to kind of push the boundaries with regards to the soulfulness, because it did go a little bit more commercial, a little bit more energetic, because that's the way the music scene was going. Yeah. Did that ever sit comfortable or uncomfortably with you?
It was a weird thing. Stuff that I was playing, but I was basically walking that line of, and also after the failure, I think as well as after the failure of Tokyo Project and off the back of Head Candy, we were looking at maybe sort of hedging our bets with a slightly more commercial sound. Mm-hmm. I was overthinking things. I was questioning myself. Never used to question myself. It was like, should we put the Lighthouse family on the end of Disco Heaven? Like, what are people going to think of us? And then, but it's the Francois Kevorkian remix. So, heck, I'm going to just do it. Should we put Love is in the Air, Milk and Sugar on a Head Candy? And it's the bit ones that people come back to all the time. And then when you meet one of the guys from the Lighthouse family in Ibiza, and he goes, "Thank you so much for putting our record on your CD. You made us cool."
Yeah.
Which, so, just weird things. But I did, and we went, and it was a much more commercial time. I think in terms of music, it wasn't as great a time for music.
No, it was that funky house era, wasn't it?
It was, but it almost went a little bit too, too far. So yeah, and then I much preferred the chill out CDs, but then the chill out CDs weren't selling as well. We did a couple of brilliant on the Fierce Angel side. I was probably happiest with the Beach Angel CDs. They actually stuck very closely, much more to what we wanted to do. Angels Fall, which was a chill out one, which there's two of those albums that I just adore still. I absolutely adore.
With regards to chill out albums, would you think that something like Cafe Del Mar, so one of the daddies of the scene, would you say that they inspired a lot of people? The reason why I get to Cafe Del Mar, I was thinking about something like Coup d'etat. Would they have been, because they had huge albums? Would you say they were inspired by you, or were you inspired by them, or because I'm not sure of the timelines?
Influences, it's just that it's all those different times. And just paying attention to everything. I think as long as you've got your own sort, I think Cafe Del Mar did have, they were very, very, you can tell what a Cafe Del Mar track is. They're a lot more ethereal, a lot more European. I tend to go for really miserable vocals. When we did Winter Chill and when we did Angels Fall, it was like music to slit your wrist to. It really was.
That's a great tagline.
The very dark side of me. All this happy disco music like do all this stuff. And there's this very, very dark side of me that if you listen to Angels Fall, it is like, I'm turning it off after track 7 because I'm proud of myself building. But yeah, Fierce Angel, they're like, it was never as successful. Nothing was ever going to be as successful. Mm-hmm. What we did, it was much more about being happy, about actually doing what I enjoyed doing, and me and my wife living our life, and not letting everything overtake it, and also possibly not involving as many people in our lives as we had in our lives who did what they did at the time. We got very, very cautious of people. We also made a decision to move out of London, and we went to the country. We now live up near Cambridge, and we, it's dogs and cats, and that music became my whole life. Fierce Angel took over a lot of it, and then you kind of go quality of life, and that's what Fierce Angel gave us. It gave us enough gigs to live on. It gave us, it solved a number of my own creative issues and of getting music out there, and it was never too difficult. The problem was that everything did change, and it did go digital, and it did, the compilation and the playlist market and everything else suddenly made music a lot less, valuable than it is now. Mm-hmm. And I think, and it's a weird thing that we've got this cyclical thing coming around of people going on about vinyl and things like that. It's like it's become too throwaway, and people do want to get that connection back with it.
Yeah.
in terms of packaging, in terms of
Yeah,
so yeah,
the tangible product.
yeah. I mean, and Fierce Angel very much went through, like we went through two distributors going bust. So that's why partly the reason why it was never as big or whatever as one is because music changed. The way
Hmm.
that we experience music, the way that we sort of derive our income from music changed
Yeah.
significantly. We had two distributors go bust, losing money at different times. The overseas market just died off. Distributors themselves were struggling, having a great distributor when all of a sudden everything's on iTunes. So it was, we got what's been great about it, the things that we did at Head Candy, the way that we worked at Head Candy, the way we treated people at Head Candy, and how we behaved has stuck with us all the way through the business. And there's always been people that have wanted to help at different points when we needed it. They were like, "Oh, yeah, okay, boom, off you go." So that's been the one good thing about keeping your values and not selling out and not. There were various times that we could have made quite a lot of money from
Hmm.
different.
But you wouldn't have slipped very well. So
No, and that's my point. Again, hey, my wife's a bit like my Jiminy Cricket at times. She regrets it now because she's on. But she's a bit like Jiminy Cricket. She's like, no, don't do it. No, you won't sleep. Oh, I live with you. I know what you're like when you do these things, and it doesn't rest with you. If you were to screw someone over or something, and that's again, I would have loved again with all this evidence and stuff. You can bring everyone up and go, I know what you said. I'll put
yeah,
it all over the
nah,
internet.
let it go, man. It's toxic. It's bad for your well-being. Okay,
No,
so listen. Let's get to 2024. There's so much of the story that I know we're hop, skipping, and jumping over, but because I don't want to rush the latter part of this story. Let's talk about where we are now. Then, so it's 25 years of Head Candy in
25 years.
2024. How have we got to this point?
The big change came 5 years ago, and Ministry of Sound are now focusing very much more on their properties, on the club. They've realised that the music market is just a pain in the backside. They've sold their music catalogue to Sony. They're doing less events outside. Everything's very much focused on a different. There's a different plan going on with Ministry. They've got some very good ideas. And the events have now gone to an agent where Head Candy events and Ministry of Sound events are with an agency. You can book one and whatever. And this agency decide that they're going to relaunch Head Candy and it's going to be as cool as it once was, blah, blah, blah. And call me in and say, what do you think of it? And I said, that's not a good idea. In the way that you can imagine that I say things. I don't think this is not what I would do. Do you do? Well, I think Head Candy is heritage brand. And it's not about making it massive and whatever. It's about doing some really cool parties. Going back to the original thing of Head Candy and using that to rebuild. You're never going to have music. Sony have music. And that music you would have to relaunch it as much more of a defected independent label type thing. Sony won't be interested in doing that because they are very much about the much big picture. So, and if you start, and don't try and be an Instagram brand, and don't try, because kids aren't going to get this. I have a very strong opinion on brands that the Instagram has virtually destroyed the brand.
Mm-hmm.
And Instagram, TikTok has destroyed the brand and elevated the individual. Now, an individual can launch Prime and make you buy, make parents kill each other for their children. But would Prime work as a brand itself? It needed those individual people that follow it. And that's not how brands work, and that's why Prime's now just gone, vanished straight away.
But that was probably it's a conversation in its own right. I'm sure that was the plan all along.
Yeah, but to launch a brand like we used to have, and do we interact with those brands? Do we buy those brands? Do kids buy those brands? Are they that interested? I'm not sure they are. I think it's much easier. Whereas Head Candy Head Candy could give you a brand new Soul Central record without you spending 20 quid on a vinyl, and we could give you, I just go to Defected and go, can I have your catalogue, please, and put it on our next album? Where that would be that way of introducing you to things under an umbrella. You can now interact directly. If I want to interact with Soul Set, I don't have to go to Head Candy to do it. I can go on social media. I can go on, if I want to speak to Andy Ward or I want Andy Ward's new single, I can hassle Andy Ward by doing it directly. I don't need Head Candy to introduce me to it.
Yeah.
And I think people are a lot luckier because they have those aspects. But I was like, no, you don't want to go young. You want to go older. And whatever. So they did what they did, and it didn't work out very well for them. So the 20th anniversary was coming, and they said, Mark, would you come back and curate the 20th anniversary? So would you choose a DJ, whatever, and maybe you can get us some more gigs? And I went and worked with this agent, and that's what we did. We chose that, we went to various places, and we had a lot of the original team working on things. We had the Freemasons, and just basically choosing what DJs were fixed. By the end of the year, they had decided that it was too much work. They wanted this. Everyone kind of goes, okay, it's massively successful, and just expect it to be massively successful. But we're 25 years old now, and it's not reconnected with the older audience, and the younger audience haven't picked up on it. The track, music, artists aren't being released, and everything's changed. So everything is a lot harder to interact with that original audience. And they decided they didn't want to do it anymore. And they said, no, we're going to pull out of this. And I went, so you're not doing it. No plans to do this. You're going to, and they were like, no, we're going to tell everyone that Head Candy's finished, all our partners. And I said, are you sure now? They went, yes. And I went to Ministry of Sound. I said, right, now they're back. And we basically had this great conversation. And we've always maintained, we are incredibly different animals. But they've always had this thing where they've always been incredibly respectful. And they've always been with each other. And I've gone back into offices with ideas, talks, but it's never been the right time to work together, do things together. And we basically came up with a plan, which was a worldwide license, if you like. And I will run the events. We'll take care of the social media. We'll have a radio show. We can't release records. That's owned by Sony. There is a plan to do that, but hopefully that's making Sony love us and see a bigger picture to everything. But events. So we do this fantastic deal. It's like, okay, well, we'll just do this. You'll let us do it, and they've been amazing. They've been incredibly supportive, and they let us have it.
So you say we.
It's the royal we.
Share your team now. Show me the Head Candy picture.
The Head Candy picture now is very much how we used to do it before. I mean, so it's me. Mrs. Doyle does all the hard work of invoicing and administration and making sure I am where I need to be. We have Mike Van Loon, who's based over in Ibiza, who is incredibly important to the company, produces the radio show as well. Fantastic friend. And then everyone else is kind of the original people that, we used to work with, and it's very much on an ad hoc basis as we build the business up. We're bringing in the original DJs, and they're doing various gigs for us. Andy Norman, Little Joey, we've got John Jones, Patty Loveheart, all the people that were there on the original ride. And on top of that, there's, as we are starting to get bigger, there's talk about many other things.
The good thing I would say down the years, because you have got such a big heart and you are such a likable person, it hasn't been difficult to knock on people's doors and get them to come back and work for you for the most part, because
people work for me already. They hate me.
No, but most people will have this romantic idea of the journey that they would have taken with you at a specific time. Golden memories, right?
Well, so the start of it, and let's not forget the most important bit of it, was I suddenly get my baby back, and we've got this, and we're going to do a tour of Australia, and we're in the 21st year of Head Candy, and we've got all this work lined up, and then it's COVID. That is literally what happened. We signed the deal, and in April, and we had all these gigs lined up, and signed the deal in February, I think it was, and March, April, phone started ringing. That was it. We went to sleep for 2 years. Now, this is where Mike and I and other people, it was an incredibly good opportunity in one respect to reset the brand entirely. And we went online and we rang up hotels in Ibiza and went, well, you're empty. Why don't we come down, set up by the pool, because you could still travel at that point. We'll set up by the pool and film content, and we'll put it online, and people, they don't get to go to one, they can watch it. And we did loads of these 2-hour sessions online and presented Head Candy again in the ideal way without you actually having to, spend money on hiring a club or do, sort of all this expensive work. We did loads of stuff. And that really kept us going for 2 years. That and a spreadsheet that said when the money was, because it's an interesting world. Not, you again, you work for yourself. You DJ. Your money's derived from going out and playing music to people, and suddenly you can't, and you can't do it anywhere in the world. But that's just, in some ways for me it was quite liberating because I was like, I've always lived. I've lived to work. I kind of live to work. I love working. I love doing things. Being creative. So I've always pushed myself. And then suddenly for someone to go, no, and luckily we've moved to this gorgeous house in the country in a tiny village that is like Dibley, where everyone knows each other, and it is beautiful, and it's like birds singing in the morning, and there were chickens and on green when we moved in. I was like, there were chickens.
You sound like me when I'm walking through the fields. I get excited when I see a goat.
But all the dogs and cats. But it really was. It was the sanity of that. If we'd have been in London, flat, I think
it would have sent you insane.
Just horrendous.
All right. Well, forgive me for skirting over the COVID thing because we don't want to focus on it too much. Because I still want to get back to how you've managed to pick up the momentum post COVID now. And just recently, I've been. It was your, the energy that you were displaying online that made me think, why haven't I spoken to Mark yet? This is the perfect opportunity. So things have gone great. Things are looking to continue to be great. So paint the picture of the scene now, 2024.
Right now we are where we want to be in terms of what we are presenting as a show. We have some great musicians working with us, sax players, percussion. We're going back to, it's not about the DJ, it's music, it's about the show. It's about being in a club that is right for the brand, as opposed to the biggest club or most commercial club. And that is what we've kind of done. We've found this fantastic little theatre down in Bournemouth that we're doing a party at. Sold that out. We sold our party out in Leeds at a really cool commercial space, which is now unfortunately closed. We found a fantastic ballroom in West London, which only holds 500 people, but we put so much production into it, and it is brilliant. It's and you're seeing the same people. We did a whole thing, and this got me back to feeling like Head Candy Tribe again. Last year, Robert Johnson, this guy, turns up at every Head Candy event, every Fierce Angel event. He's 76 years old, and he gets on the train and he comes out clubbing. And this year I was speaking to him last summer, and it was like, he knows Ben and Laura and Ibiza. Goes to Ibiza, has a clubbing schedule in Ibiza that will put like a 21-year-old to shame. He's like, well, I'm going to Passion. And he's just a gentleman. And I was speaking to one of our events. So you're going to Ibiza this year? And he was like, no, cost of living, can't afford it, blah, blah, blah. So I was like, no, Robert, you will go to it. And we launched a thing on the Head Candy page. And launched a thing on the Head Candy page.
Calm your dogs down, please.
Into my dogs. Do you not want to know what the female dog is doing to the male dog? But it's quite aggressive. It's not a good look at all. Can you stop, please, children? Okay. Right. Anyway, we did a fundraiser for Robert, and basically we basically raised enough money to send him to Ibiza, put him up in a hotel, give him spends every day of the week, and get him into whatever club he wanted to go to.
How incredible!
And it then got picked up by the press. It was on Lad Bible. It was One Foot in the Rave, they called it. And it's all this thing, and everyone's now picking up on this thing of, do you know what, you get older, but you don't have to grow up.
No.
Like, you still want to go out. You still want to listen to music. A reason that brands like Clockwork Orange are doing so incredibly well is they position themselves as you did this before, you still want to do it, we'll give you an environment where you can enjoy it, you know, and it won't be, you don't have to go to your local nightclub and, you know, rub shoulders with 18-year-olds who apparently are now not going out anymore anyway.
Anyway, yeah.
You know, or drinking or doing this. So we have tapped into that. That is what we want. We have tapped into that. You know, when we launched Head Kandi, it was like, it was very much for sort of mid-20s, and it was like, you might have been there, seen it, and done it, but wouldn't mind doing it again. Well, we're kind of repeating that yet again with what we're doing. Again, working with some great venues, some great people, just reconnecting again with all that sort of thing. And it's been very much that, since that thing you don't want to talk about, but it has been that getting people with the confidence to go back out again. That's still part of it. You know, grown-ups, as we call them, you know, 30 plus, things affect them far more than a 21-year-old coming out for a night out. It's like, you know, having babysitters for the kids, and, you know, the oil price has gone up, so I can't afford to go out. We've got all these other issues as well as that we have to navigate in terms of what we do with them for club nights. But it's about the music, it's about the environment, and it's about walking into a space where you just feel accepted and you feel happy and have an amazing time.
Beautiful.
The dog loves it.
Beautiful. It sounds great. It really does sound great.
But it's hard work.
Yeah.
It's hard work. You know, we are rebuilding that tribe, and we're trying to bring that tribe back together when, you know, a lot of them don't interact in the same way anymore. Fanny wants to be on TV now. They don't interact in the same way anymore, and you're trying to, you know, and also give them back that trust that they're not going to go out have a truly awful time with, you know, in an environment that they don't enjoy.
I get you.
So yeah, I mean, and there's lots of other plans. You know, kind of the heritage thing. We've got.
This is just a farce now. This is just a farce.
Of carnage. You know, there's talk of books. There's talk of, you know, Head Kandi the movie would be fantastic. Like, some of the stuff we've talked about, you put that on a screen, it would be like the best, you know, sort of Netflix, you know, these TV shows.
Completely. And I know for a fact, I say a lot of the time, we've barely scratched the surface here, really, because you spoke about the indulgence and, you know, being the party animal, well known for, not to the extremes, but well known for being the life and soul of the party. So the stories. Miami, Ibiza, you know, I've been with you on one or two of these occasions, you know, slightly good times.
3 days in a hotel room in Miami once. Didn't want to leave the room. Couldn't leave the room. Oh, it was weird. I mean, I think what we should do now, anyone that watches this, or has been watching, or will watch it, we should give it a couple of weeks. We should let everybody write questions down or ask specific things, and then possibly do a 1 hour pickup special.
Without a doubt, I'd be happy to do that, mate.
Good idea.
I'd be happy to do that. Well, you know, as I say, it's the middle of the day on a Thursday afternoon, so most people are at work, but they will get to see this, and I'll happily love to bring you back on and chat more. I want to thank you for allowing me to kickstart my 2024 series of interviews. It has been fun.
With the director's cut.
Yeah, that's it. But the good thing is, you know, I make no apologies for the way that we do it. It's just a conversation between two friends having a good old chat, trying to capture some things that you probably haven't spoken about in a stuffy interview before. And I'm sure we definitely got some of that out of you this afternoon, right?
You can think of some more stuff. You probably, and in fact, you probably remember more of some of the things that we've done together than I do at the time, which was lovely. People remind me of things that I'm doing. Someone talked to me about, we got given a weird thing at Miami. We had a room at the Sagamore. We checked in, and they were like, "You're from Head Kandi. We're giving you the penthouse on the roof." And I was given like this big glass box penthouse. And apparently we had parties up there and everything. I remember very little about those things, which is like, so anyway, and people send me messages. Best messages are, I met you in Ibiza on Saturday night, and you were like, I have no clue who you are. Yeah. You were talking to me for 3 hours. whatever, and
Brilliant.
they were much younger days.
Indeed. Well, you mentioned about Ibiza. One thing that I'm not even going to mention it. I'll mention it, but don't comment on it. We didn't even talk about sort of like the bass bar connection and all that kind of Ibiza stuff. But right, I'm going to
Ibiza special.
Oh, there you go. I'll draw a line under this now. I'll thank you so much for your time. I'm just going to say a couple of goodbyes. I will press a button now that will unceremoniously kick you off the stream. But thank you for your time. And I'll send you a message after, and I'll definitely schedule something to do again in the future, brother.
No, this has been nothing but a pleasure, Andy, and I hope I haven't bored you too much. And I'd like to say thank you very much.
Thank you.
And thank you for the chance of doing it as well. It's really, really appreciated.
You're more than welcome. I've been quite happy sitting here with my mouth shut, letting you educate us. And I would like to say, before I forget, I made a mental note that your backstory, the beginnings of it, and I did know, but I had kind of forgot. I really was impressed with, your early days and, your passion and your drive for the soul music and what you do. And, without laying it on thick, genuinely, mate, you created a monster, and a lot of people will be grateful for what you've given them down the years.
You've been responsible for a fair few moments as well. I mean, you are, but the thing is, though, you're the person that makes me look good. You made amazing records that we put on compilations. I mean, there you go.
Oh, well, thank you. And on that note, you've made me feel very uncomfortable. And I'll say thank you, brother. All right, we're going to go. Thank you, mate. Take care. And thank your wife for allowing us to distill you for 2.5 hours. See you, man.
Thanks very much, mate.
Bye. And there he goes. Wow. 2.5 hours chatting, and we could have continued chatting a lot longer. I'm happy to see that all of the technology has held up and it's all working great. I'm fairly certain some people will have been bouncing in and out. You do need to go back and check out the whole of the conversation. Take it in dribs and drabs whenever you can. So on YouTube, it's a full widescreen experience. On Facebook, I've gone for this vertical screen here. Thank you. I did see Lisa LC saying earlier how crisp the camera looks. Yeah, that's just trying out a few things. Let me go back and read some of these comments. Gary Bass, Mr. Hipperson, stateside. Thank you, brother. He was saying it was always a dream of his to become a head Kandi DJ. Phil West, good afternoon, mate. Glad you got to see that. Mr. Henderson, good afternoon, my friend. Thank you for being here. And Jeff Jefferson, my long lifetime buddy. It's great for you to be here, mate. I'm sure you've been on a head Kandi party or two yourself. Okay. I am going to press this button and end this. Thank you so much. Head on over and subscribe to me on YouTube. I'm going to be back on a weekly basis. I got something just as special next week for you. When I press this button, it should take to the end screen. I thank you for watching. I thank all of the Access crew who join me on a monthly basis by putting £10 into the pot. All of these names here are allowing us to build a well in Africa that will provide fresh drinking water for up to 10 years for communities. And you can also find all out about me at wardswebsites.com. Okay. Sorry, I just had my attention stolen then. See you later, guys.